Officers from the Sydney Harbour Federation Trust. Welcome, Ms Carding, Executive Director. Did you wish to make an opening statement?
No, thank you.
No. Okay. In which case, then I'll turn over to Senator Bragg.
Thank you. How you going? How's the trust going in terms of its profitability?
So the Harbour Trust works on a break-even basis in cash terms.
Yeah.
And that's hard to perhaps sometimes see from our annual reports, partly because we've been spending down money that's been allocated by government in previous years. So we aim for a break-even position in cash terms and we live within our means.
Okay. Isn't there a mixed funding model where you raise funds from commercial businesses and the like that take out leases on the trust sites?
That's correct. We're revenue funded, so rather than an annual appropriation, we have around 229 properties, I think it is, that are leased either commercially or to residential tenants, and that provides rental income which makes up just over 70% of our income, and the remaining income comes from activations on the sites.
How much? 70%?
72%.
And does that? But what about the grants? Do you receive cash from Canberra?
We do receive allocations from time to time,
right,
typically for maintenance
projects.
Are
they?
Yeah.
Are they for particular purposes? Or
they're for particular purposes.
For remediation or something?
That's correct, yes. The last was in 2023, 2024 and was $45.2 million for maintenance.
What was that for? Middle Harbour or North Head?
It was for all 9 of the sites, and it was for a range of critical backlogs that had been identified as needing urgent work, and the maintenance projects, it was around 50 different projects. Each one was about making things safe, fixing things that were at end of life, making sure that our sites could stay open to the public.
Okay. So have you asked for any new funding, chunky funding?
We've just received the first year of $10.2 million worth of investment that is going to enable us to convert the Cockatoo Island slipways that were formerly used for building battleships. We're going to give them a new life for swimming and for kayaking, and we received the first $2 million in the current financial year, and I think there's $3.2 million in the next financial year for us.
Right, so you've already got that in the budget?
That's correct.
Are you asking for any new funding?
We're always interested in seeking new funding for the Harbour Trust, but we don't have any specific projects on the books at the moment.
So how do you propose to fund major remediation works?
So what we would apply through the normal budget process, like other corporate Commonwealth entities, through an MPP process from time to time.
What about this? Have you kept an eye on this proposed divestment of defence assets?
Certainly, yes. There's been a lot of discussion about it in the community, and so a number of people have raised that with me.
So what do you think about this HMAS Penguin, which is sort of next door? I went to it recently, had a look. It's adjacent to the trust site. Some of the community members would like it to be annexed to the trust. Do you have any thoughts on this? Well,
I should start by saying that we're not in the acquisition area. We don't go out looking for new sites to manage. It's a matter for government. And if a site's transferred to the Harbour Trust, then we would manage it under the Sydney Harbour Federation Trust Act. And so really decisions on future sites is really a matter for government.
Yeah, but it is physically attached, isn't it? Or there's a border?
They are neighbours, yes. They're neighbours to us.
And that Penguin is much smaller than the Middle Harbour site, isn't it?
Our site at Headland Park covers areas of Georges Heights down to Middle Head and then down to Chowder Bay. And as you head down to Middle Head, HMAS Penguin is on one side of the road. And they're a neighbour, as is Sydney Harbour National Park, which is part of New South Wales Government. So there's a number of us that are in that area.
Have you given any thought to the cost of maintaining the six hectares of Angostura forest on the site?
We currently maintain forest on the Harbour Trust site, which is adjacent to the
Yeah.
forest that's within HMAS Penguin. I don't have any specific details or knowledge of the forest that's part of HMAS Penguin.
But are you looking after an Anglophora forest at the moment on trust sites?
We are, yes.
You already are, okay.
Yes.
Okay. How much does it cost to take care of the native bush?
We have a number of contracts that are overseen by staff members in our assets and parklands area. I'd need to take the details on notice for that because there's a number of different arrangements that we have in place across our 9 different sites and different activities caring for the bush happening at each of the sites. So I'll take that on notice if I may.
You might get you to also take on notice how many people in the last year visited the trust sites and break it down by the actual site.
Yes, I can give you the overall figure.
Yeah.
There was over 2 million visit our sites over the last financial year. But yes, I can give you a site breakdown if I take that on notice.
And also, if you know the answer now, it'd be good to get. What about the revenue or the lost revenue from the sites that aren't currently leased on trust sites? I mean, how many of the buildings that are usable are not currently leased?
Very few usable buildings are unleased, but I can provide those figures for you. Our vacancy rates are very low because I think it's fair to say that our properties are very desirable, both for residential and commercial use. But we have listed, I think, in our annual report last year that 78% of our built heritage is in reuse. So there's another 22% that at the moment isn't leasable. It needs more work to be done on it: decontamination, remediation, adaptive reuse.
Which is the biggest one needing remediation?
That would be Building 1 at North Head Sanctuary.
Which is the ballroom?
It has a ballroom and it has a canteen and it has what were former dormitory style accommodation for somewhere between 400 and 500 gunners. It was the home of the Royal Australian Artillery for many years.
Yeah, that hasn't been remediated.
We have done some essential maintenance works on the roof and water protection for the windows, but I'm afraid, yes, after 25 years of operation, we have not yet been able to lease that building.
So are you looking for a commercial partner for that?
Yes, and I've met with a number of prospective partners, and we've shown many people through that building. And unfortunately, at the moment, the amount of investment that would be required for a commercial partner, they wouldn't be able to realise a return within the lease lengths that are available.
Oh, because you need longer-term leases.
Well, our legislation provides for leases up to 25 years or up to 35 years with a parliamentary process, but only leases up to 25 years have been used at present.
Okay. That's good. I might just get you to also provide a notice what percentage of your income comes from parking,
Parking?
if any.
Yes, there would be a small amount of income that comes from parking and indeed from infringements. I can take that on notice.
Yeah, there's plenty of infringements around there, isn't there? Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Unless there are other questions for the Trust, I will say thank you very much for your attendance and your evidence here today, and you go with the committee's appreciation.
Thank you.
So, I will now call officers from the Inspector General of Water Compliance. I welcome the Honourable Mr Troy Grant, the Inspector General. Do you wish to make an opening statement?
I do. I do. Thank you, Senator, and good evening. Senator, it's great to have the opportunity to appear before you tonight, particularly as much has happened since I last gave evidence in person back in October of 25. Today I'm joined by my Deputy Inspector General, Daniel Blacker, and we're both here to and happy to answer questions that you have of us. We're also able to provide further clarification to the written advice I provided to the committee in February of this year. There is much more to come from my office before the next scheduled estimates hearings in the months ahead, details of which I'll touch on in a moment. Australia is currently at an important juncture of the statutory review cycles of the Basin Plan, the Water Act and the Inspector-General of Water Compliance. Complementing this, it is timely to review basin commitments, agreements and responsibilities of government supporting the successful delivery of the current Murray-Darling Basin Plan. Our work as the independent regulator, oversight body and integrity agency should give this place comfort that we are the fit-for-purpose response to a problem that the Parliament sought to address in 2018. Senators, in mid-April this year, I delivered to the Minister my findings and recommendations from my very first inquiry. It not only highlights the first use of the IGWC's formal inquiry powers under the Water Act, including the significant power to compel any person or organisation to produce documents and information. It also highlights why the Inspector-General was set up by the lawmakers in this place as an independent oversight of the Basin Plan. The inquiry, titled the Northern Basin Toolkit Inquiry, I independently inquired into the $166 million package of infrastructure and policy measures aimed at enhancing environmental outcomes in the Northern Basin. Measures agreed to on the basis of reducing the Northern Basin's water recovery target by 70 gigalitres. For context, this was the close examination of a single program worth $166.3 million within a $13 billion Australian taxpayer-funded plan, which means there are many other programs within the plan yet to be scrutinised. This is a plan which has started to undergo its mandatory 10-year statutory review, a review that I hope continues to engage with my office in a meaningful way to ensure we can contribute to the MDBA's desire to, and I quote from their public materials, use up-to-date evidence and future-focused science to make recommendations to ensure our water management approach balances the environmental, cultural, social and economic needs across the basin for the next 10 years. The evidence from my Northern Basin Toolkit inquiry in regard to water management found some policy measures, activity that required no actual funding, largely succeeded. These are things like coordinated environmental water delivery and event-based mechanisms. These are complete and embedded as standard practice and shows good outcomes. Conversely, infrastructure measures which received all the dedicated funding severely under-delivered, and because of this, the environment bore the cost. Senators, as the community well know, and so too the lawmakers in this place, the environment's tab is not something that can continue to pick up the cost of under-delivery when it comes to water management. The environment's own cost of survival pressures have been so great for so long that it took national action through a basin plan to reduce ongoing impact for future generations. So when this inquiry found the 70 gigalitres sustainable diversion limit adjustment was secured before a single delivery agreement was signed, the benefit for such an arrangement being provided up front, it meant there were no meaningful consequences for the beneficiaries for non-delivery of their part of the agreement. While not the sole example where the $166 million Northern Basin Toolkit seriously under-delivered, a project in the Macquarie Marshes that was funded to deliver an adaptive flow control structure, similar to a weir or a regulator, resulted in a 30-centimetre pile of rocks to stabilise the riverbed at a cost of $2.5 million. Simply not good enough when the Macquarie Marshes has since been listed as an endangered ecological community. This goes to the point of where does the real cost go when ecological commitments are not met and projects without any recourse don't deliver? The answer is simple. It goes back onto the environment's tab. As the Commonwealth's independent regulator, oversight body and integrity agency, my role is to look into things through a lens that uses the tools and powers given to the role. Earlier this year, as part of our commitment to the outcomes of the Restoring Our Rivers Act of 23 under my audit powers as part of my independent oversight of the plan, I released and published the first of two audits. An audit of the Macquarie and Castlereagh alluvium was the first of its kind to be completed on one of New South Wales' long-awaited water resource plans, known as WRPs. That audit's findings show that New South Wales did not meet all the commitments made in the Macquarie Castlereagh Alluvium WRP. On a positive note, Water New South Wales were fully compliant. A key message from this audit: failed commitments have implications for compliance with obligations in the Basin Plan for meeting environmental watering requirements in New South Wales for groundwater management. The second and quite separate body of work, an audit, environmental water planning in the New South Wales intersecting streams and Victorian Murray, is also complete, and I published it earlier this month. During the Restoring Our Rivers Bill amendment process in late 23, I heard concerns from a diverse cross-section of industry and community relating to environmental outcomes throughout the basin. In short, this audit shows two jurisdictions with two very different results. Victoria met its commitments. New South Wales met many commitments, but not all, and the gap matters. A key message from that audit: you cannot manage what you do not measure. Without reliable measurement, limits cannot be enforced. Planning isn't backed by accurate data, and trust erodes. In 2026, this is important because it was the loss of trust that led to the genesis of the IGWC in 2018. Senators, to further strengthen independent basin oversight, I have now fully established and convened under the Water Act 2007 a Sustainable Diversions Limit, or SDL, compliance advisory panel. SDL performance forms a key component of the 26 Basin Plan review and the following Water Act of 2007 review. The panel I've established will provide me with independent guidance on best practice and continuous improvement for SDL compliance, and work with my office as part of our statutory compliance role. This independent panel's knowledge and skills will provide expert analysis behind my evidence and risk-based approach to SDL compliance assessment across the basin, which is a significant concern to me. I finalised and published the IGWC 26 to 2030 strategic plan at the beginning of April. As the agency responsible for independent oversight of the plan, my focus will be measurement and accounting, implementation of plans, and supporting the statutory reviews for governance and legislative enhancement. Senators, this place can take comfort in the knowledge that as the Independent Inspector General of Water Compliance, we are doing what this Parliament expects of us as per the Act and powers that we've been given. The powers we have and the role we play are afforded to us for a reason. Reporting on what we find is done through evidence-based, factual, balanced, well-considered and independent advice to government. Our contribution to the reviews that look at areas of legislation or water management that we operate in, or contributions we provide to the reviews into us, is treated the exact same way. Regarding the latter, shooting the messenger, because independent oversight and regulation can feel a little uncomfortable, or it highlights a lack of accountability, and in doing so diminishes trust and confidence, would not be the answer to a $13 billion question. We are established under the law because of a lack of accountability, trust and confidence. We have achieved a lot since I last appeared in this place. We have a lot of work currently underway, all focused on delivering against our strategic priorities. I look forward to taking any and all of your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr Grant. Question, Senator Canavan.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr Grant, and thank you for the report you've delivered. I believe your report states that transparency arrangements have not met the intergovernmental agreement obligations. Where exactly have those transparency arrangements failed?
On a number of fronts, Senator. There was obligations on the committee to provide public reporting in relation to the progress of the toolkit, which in my opening statement I referred to particularly in relation to the infrastructure projects. That did not happen because of a failed governance structure. The information that was being provided of issues or problems that could have been addressed was essentially going to the wrong body, being the Basin Officials Committee, which didn't have the necessary scope or functions as they're established under the Murray-Darling Agreement, not the Basin Plan, to provide advice into water management. And they therefore weren't also able to provide that information to Minco to make corrective.
They weren't able
They
to?
weren't also then able to provide that information up to the Minco level, which didn't give the ministers throughout the period of the toolkit, which continues the visibility they needed from a transparency process to correct the issues that we were facing.
So the Basin Officials Committee got the information, is that right?
Yes.
Is this an officials committee established under a ministerial council, or?
It's established under the Murray-Darling Basin Agreement.
Right, okay. It's made up of, usually these sort of officials committee, it's made up of public servants, is it, from state, territory and federal departments?
From the states jurisdictions of
States
New
as
South
well as
Wales,
ACT, yeah. Yep.
the basin jurisdictions, as well as Commonwealth
Right.
agencies.
So if the officials were advised, the Basin officials were advised, why didn't that go up to, you said Minco, is that the ministers, why didn't that go up to the ministers if their own officials had the information?
Yeah, so
I'm just trying to, like, I suppose I would have
I'm not
expected...
avoiding the question, I'm just trying to answer it the right way.
Expecting my officials to brief me on, say, failings in an agreement. These are officials in the water departments, were they?
Correct.
Presumably. Well, how come that information didn't flow up to the ministers?
So in the inquiry, we compelled a range of documentation. We got about 12,000 documents through the course of the inquiry. Our analysis of those documents showed us that a lot of things were being noted in committees rather than coming with specific actions.
Yeah, okay.
And that was one of the failure points that we found in governance.
Right, okay. So it was a failure within the bureaucracy then, was it? Not to action these things or follow
What we
them up?
looked at was if accountability is two things, one's clear responsibility and the other one's consequence. The responsibility was the issue that we kept coming across. Who is clearly responsible for that program? That the Basin Officials Committee are established to look and oversee matters in the Murray-Darling Basin Agreement. That's separate to the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. So it was an existing governance arrangement which was being used for implementation of the plan, and what we found here is that there's opportunities to improve that and get governance that's focused on implementation of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan rather than the agreement. The agreement's 120, 130 years old.
Presumably, though, the officials that are responsible for the Murray-Darling Agreement are in the same departments at state and federal levels as those responsible for the Basin Plan. Is that generally correct?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, not all the same.
Okay.
And they've got a wealth of work to do on their agenda for their MD Murray-Darling Agreement responsibilities as well.
Right. But is it a case that even within an own department then there wasn't communication between public servants responsible for the Murray-Darling or water policy, but they weren't talking to each other then because there were silos effectively?
So
Is that
reports
right?
would go up from a project committee,
Right.
was their names, and at times it was jurisdictions talking to themselves, essentially.
This transparency was about the progress of so-called SID-LAMs or Sustainable Diversion Limit Adjustment Mechanisms and the like, is that right? Or
No, so these weren't SID-LAM projects.
Okay.
This was a toolkit
right.
IGA, independent of the SID-LAM projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
There can be similar projects in both programs, both undertake infrastructure
So
projects.
what's in the toolkit? What sort of programs are in the toolkit? What is meant to happen?
Yeah, so there's a range, 6 measures. First one was about water recovery. The second one was about protection of environmental flows. The third one was about event-based mechanisms. The fourth one was about coordination and management of environmental water. And then the last two are the infrastructure-heavy ones. Removal of constraints in the Guida catchment. And the sixth one was environmental works and measures to promote fish habitat and movement.
So the works and measures, that's sort of connected to the SID-LAMs, is it? It's all coming back to me now. But
Toolkit-specific infrastructure projects that's similar to what SID-LAM projects look like. Yeah. So fish screens, for example, as part of the reconnecting is a project was to reconnect about 3,000 kilometres. It's in our report when we finalised, it was 64 kilometres had been done. I think now the latest update, we're up to about 120 odd kilometres, but well short of the project's target.
Yeah, it sounds Byzantine. Okay. So apparently the ministers didn't find out about these failures. Is there any obligation for officials to communicate progress under the toolkit to the communities, to people in the basin?
There's obligations within the IGA, yes.
Yep.
Were they met?
No, not satisfactory. There was ad hoc reporting. There was a bit of reporting at one stage, then a big absence of reporting. And then when we announced the inquiry, the reporting was re-established.
So one of the findings of the inquiry was that public transparency has not met commitments in Schedule 3 of the Intergovernmental Agreement on Implementing Water Reform in the Murray-Darling Basin. And that was really reflecting what we saw in the evidence base, that there was more information available for officials than was necessarily in the public domain, and there was an opportunity there to meet that commitment in the schedule, but the public reporting fell short of that commitment.
Okay, right. Okay. Is these failures to meet targets and objectives, is this something that is a short-term issue that will be rectified, or are some of these projects simply unachievable in your view?
Well, the toolkit runs till December, so there's an opportunity for course correction in regards to the toolkit, as there is with the lessons learnt for other future infrastructure projects that we've made clear in the inquiry report.
So
the same mistakes
you think they're still achievable by the end of the year?
It's a mix. So there are some projects that we find in here that are unachievable by the end of this year. So, for example, the Guida Constraints Program, everybody recognised that will not be complete by December this year. There are projects that are in train that have the opportunity to be met by December this year. So it's a mix. And part of what we've done in the inquiry is provide some recommendations. So there's 7 recommendations in there to try and get as many of those through to completion as we can. But also we recognise there's other programs like this currently and potentially into the future. And so there's 11 lessons in the final report about how to improve programs like this for the future.
Okay. So given pretty serious failures you've identified, what are the consequences of ramifications for the officials that have failed here?
There's no consequences other than to the environment and ultimately community.
Yeah, that's well said, Mr. Grant. That's what seems to happen always for people in the basin. Heads they lose, tails they lose. What about you, Minister? This is pretty damning conclusions. Has the government taken action since this report was?
Well, we only received this report in mid-April, but obviously that we will take its recommendations into account in the future design of programs. The Northern Basin Toolkit was created back in 2018. This has been a long-running issue, but we welcome the work that Mr. Grant and his team have done, and as I say, we'll take that into account.
Okay. Has the Ministerial Council met yet to discuss this report?
Not since we've received that report.
When's the next meeting?
Mid-year. I've forgotten exactly when, but mid-year.
Early August.
Early August.
Yeah. Does that seem a bit... These are pretty serious consequences, and apparently the clock's ticking to the end of the year. Is mid-August early enough to discuss? Is that the earliest you'll discuss this report with your state colleagues?
If there are opportunities to address some of these issues before the toolkit expires, then obviously we'll take that opportunity.
Well, it would appear in the evidence tonight that would be worthwhile, because August is still a good 3 months away, and there's only 7 odd months of the year left. So it's about half the time left. Are any of these, the failures to meet some of these projects like the Guida constraints, do they have ramifications then for water recovery to meet the basin plan?
So one of the key things that this inquiry looked at was the relationship between the 70 gigalitre reduction in targets and this toolkit. So what we heard consistently through the course of the inquiry from agencies was that there was no relationship between the 70 gigalitre reduction, which came out of a review process, and a toolkit to deliver environmental outcomes. The findings of the inquiry reject that proposition and find that there is a relationship, but it's really clear that there's no provisions to link the delivery of those projects to that 70 gigalitres. There are no clawback mechanisms in this program.
No reconciliation.
So it's different to other programs. So the benefit was provided up front and then on the expectation that the projects would be delivered.
What was the benefit, sorry?
A 70 gigalitre reduction in the water recovery target under the basin plan.
Right, okay. Yep, okay. Does that mean the failure of these projects, when you say clawback, I'm just trying to understand the jargon here, does that mean that the water recovery has to go back up by 70 gigalitres if they fail?
No, the opposite. So in your example earlier on the SIDLAM program, the SIDLAM program is 605 gigalitres, and at the end there's a reconciliation. So it says how many projects were delivered, and there's an accounting adjustment accordingly. Here there is no back-end reconciliation.
For the Northern Basin.
There's no adjustment. There is no accounting mechanism at the back end.
Okay.
It's simply the 70 gigalitres was reduced up front.
Right, okay. But your review has not looked at the SIDLAMs in the Southern Basin, has it?
No, it was focused on the IGA that covered the Northern Basin toolkit.
So
okay. Is there someone reviewing the Southern Basin? Because it sounded probably similar issues might arise there too, but yes. So.
Yeah, so there's two categories of projects in that SIDLAM program. So the first one's constraints and the second one's supply measures. The supply measures are quite similar in infrastructure projects to some of those in the toolkit.
Yep.
And so the lessons learnt that we outline in this inquiry report could be applied to a program like SIDLAM. So there's opportunity for agencies who are delivering SIDLAM infrastructure projects to look at the lessons learnt and those opportunities, and that's also on the same timeline. So it's got until the end of this year to be delivered.
The same timeline, does it?
Correct.
In relation to the constraints component, the Murray-Darling Basin Authority has published a little while back a constraints roadmap. So saying, was anyone looking at it? The MDBA have published a body of work in that regard.
Yeah, sounds like there hasn't been a lot of progress on any of this for a long time. I mean, this lack of project progress, is it undermining the basin plan in your view?
Yes.
In what way do you think it'll be undermined?
Well, it just erodes trust and confidence is the first thing, and that's why we're employed. That's what we've been tasked by this Parliament to do, is to restore trust and confidence in the basin plan. So, yes, it erodes that component of it. But just talking plainly, if you're paid to do something and it's expected to get a benefit at it, people expect that to happen. And when it doesn't happen, they expect why or how come. And we've found those answers and we've published in a report with how to avoid this happening. We can't unscramble the egg, Senator, but you can certainly, for departments, jurisdictions, governments broadly, they can learn the lessons from this. So the environment, the community, the taxpayer, whoever is getting value for money, they're getting the outcomes that are planned and mapped. A pretty impressive panel put these projects together, a scientific panel. Some really terrific public servants did some wonderful work on this. What frustrates me most as the Inspector General is a number of public services were like canaries in the coal mine on this. They raised concerns and they weren't adhered to, and that was really disappointing evidence to hear, as well as being supported by documentation that we found.
Right.
So
who ignored them? Who ignored these canaries?
Well, it's the government structure didn't allow the canaries to get to the right people and right decision makers.
Within the bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's a design problem rather than an individual issue. So, and that's the big focus of the recommendation we've made is this needs to be designed better.
Right.
And it's going to close the opportunity for things to fall through the cracks. It's going to close the gap where people aren't accountable. We've made a key recommendation in here to actually have a nominated person responsible for a project of this type under an IGA. What's the technical term under Commonwealth?
Senior Responsible Officer.
So that would all enhance and help projects of this type into the future, and then I think that would give the community the trust and confidence they're then after.
Apart from this senior sort of officer, are you recommending that there should be some kind of performance management or
Basin Implementation Committee for projects of this note?
Well, I suppose what I'm getting at is obviously the communities have skin in the game.
Yeah.
When things go wrong with the basin plan, they pay the price. Those implementing the basin plan, particularly the bureaucrats, ministers, etc., they don't really have the same skin in the game. At the moment, as far as I can tell, when things go wrong, well, they keep getting paid, they go on with their lives. Is there any kind of process here we could create a performance incentive management structure to incentivise delivery of what is promised?
One of the things we had to think about as we went through the inquiry is where do we put our focus and effort, and if we had seen particular code of conduct issues, there are agencies we can refer those sorts of things to for action. But what we saw here and what we focused on was not the individuals, because this was more systemic than an individual officer's conduct.
Somebody's ultimately got to be responsible.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately the minister should be.
The design of it wasn't. Yeah. The design of it didn't identify who was responsible.
Okay.
So we found 4 themes of
This is,
key
I suppose,
issues.
part of the problem. Then, if no one's responsible, no one will take action to fix it. But yes,
That's why we've recommended someone is made responsible.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I think that's it on those reviews. But just moving on to other issues. Have you received any updates on the 4 outstanding water resource plans in New South Wales? I think this was raised in October estimates. There were some delays with consultation with First Nations groups. Have they been resolved?
They have not. The same frustrations exist as the latest advice and briefing I have. The authority are better positioned than me, but I have met personally with Minister Jackson. I have witnessed her best efforts to resolve this with her team. We have personally offered to intervene. I travelled from Queensland to Moree to meet with the community to try and help them as an independent person understand what their concerns were and steer in the right path. They didn't show up to the meeting, so
So what exactly is the hold up here? I'm completely unfamiliar with it myself.
it's an engagement issue of who the officials are getting told that they accept or don't accept the information, and or who are the appropriate people to meet with. So
You mean this is the appropriate representatives of First Nations groups? Is that right? Okay. Okay. All right, and is that a requirement that they have to be consulted or
Yes.
have their feedback before they're finalised?
yeah, the authority are better positioned. They own this space
Yep. Okay.
in that construct, but with the state jurisdiction. But
Yep.
yes,
So the water resource plans have not been submitted at all at this stage?
they have been submitted over time and been rejected through other previous processes.
Okay.
But the current ones are missing that final piece of
Right.
First Nations consultation to be resubmitted.
So
Okay.
there's 5 plans at the moment which are outstanding. One was a court matter, and of the other 4, there's a First Nations issue affecting all 4 of those, but one of those also has some floodplain harvesting licensing matters to be resolved, so that's the Namoy surface water plan.
Okay. What's the consequence of the water resource plans not being finalised?
Well, it's a legal instrument that gives us the power to be the enforcement body for the Commonwealth for obligations that aren't met within that water resource plan. If they're not a
Is there
legal
already a
instrument, I
water
can't do
resource
anything
plan
about
for
it.
these areas? Is it just a matter of updating?
There is none, no.
There is
They're
none.
absent.
Okay. So this goes back.
When we started this job, there was none in New South Wales. They're now at just about 80%.
was none?
There was 0.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
until I'd made a speech and
I always
embarrassed
blame
this government
Queenslanders for
action.
the issues.
They've gone from none to 80%.
Okay.
I wasn't overly popular,
Yeah, okay.
but it got the job done.
Good.
mostly.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck with the rest. That's it for me, Chair, on the Inspector General.
Thank you very much. Senator McLaughlin.
On the on the review, were you happy with the powers under the Act allowed you to conduct the inquiry, or should, excuse me, be reflecting on whether we need to enhance your powers?
Yeah, so we're currently under a statutory review in relation to our powers, and we've made wouldn't call it submission. We have worked with the reviewers to provide them feedback on the limitations of some of our inquiry powers and our wish list, for want of a better word. So yeah, we've made a statement of claim, for want of a better word, through that review process, which is coming to an end very soon, I understand.
Were those limitations apparent in this inquiry?
Yes.
There was a couple of examples that are probably worth pointing out. So one of the challenges under the legislation as it stands is that the Inspector-General has to personally undertake the inquiry. So an ability to delegate or appoint somebody to lead an inquiry would be a useful amendment. So those are the sorts of things that we're talking to the reviewers about. But we did use some of those powers for the first time, and there are some lessons to share with the reviewers in that. So we used the power to compel documentation for the first time. We used the requirement to appear before the Inspector-General to answer questions. So we exercised a lot of those.
So no witnesses were compelled, they all voluntarily turned up for interview.
Right. Are they under oath when they speak to you?
They're not under oath. They have obligations they're required to meet under the Act.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your comment interested me around a lack of information flow for accountability. Is there a need for a whistleblower provision for your office? Why wouldn't have those officials felt comfortable going outside the chain of command, for example, where they feel restrained? I mean, you know, it's one thing to say you need someone accountable. That's effectively stating the obvious, and it's strange, but the bureaucracy is the bureaucracy. But would it assist if people in the plan, who assist in the plan or work in the plan from different agencies, had a place to go?
It's interesting, it's not something that was raised with us during the inquiry. We haven't had anybody explicitly talk to us about that or looking for that avenue. Our view during the inquiry was that those people had a voice internally and they used that voice. The question for us was whether the governance arrangements were there to give them an appropriate action as a result of the issues that were being raised. So risks were being brought up. It was just whether or not there was a forum to act on those and act on those in a timely way. A lot of them require inter-jurisdictional agreement, so it's not one agency or one jurisdiction acting alone.
Was there a paper flow that showed at least they were raised between those agencies?
Yes, and that's what was part of the compel powers that were helpful, that we acquired that documentation.
Will you now revisit this issue at some time in the future? I mean, the government said it's obviously taken on board in designing programs, so that's that component of it. How do I get comfort that things are actually changed other than asking the Minister questions at estimates and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so I'll get my deputy to help me just make sure I've got the right names, but a lot of things we found have already been found previously and reported to governments over time and have basically sat on the shelf. Productivity Commission reports have identified the same, if not similar, design governance issues on the shelf. The Greg Clayton review, BOC, I think, was commissioned that a few years ago in relation to governance on the shelf. We're not on shelf. So yes, we'll be going back and making sure, as we do with all our audit recommendations and findings, we will relentlessly follow up to make sure we're having the influence within our powers we can to make sure the best outcomes are achieved.
What was the motive of giving the benefit up front? What was the reasoning? It's very unusual behaviour, even in a bureaucratic system, without expecting something in return or delivering.
Yeah, so we have a cooperative federation model
Yes.
that runs the basin plan. So it's a good faith model. The work that was done by the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, they did a review, for want of a better word, on what was possible and did a recalculation. They arrived at a 70 gig figure and then mapped out using an expert panel what would be the projects that would offset that essentially, or that would make sure that that was the right environmental outcomes for that quantum of water being returned to consumptive pools. So
it's a lot of faith in engineering ability, isn't it?
yeah, it's the constitutional model we have for a lot of things, not just water in this country. So, you know, and that's what an IGA is, to document that frames up what and how and the commitments given and the obligations that may sit with those commitments. It's just about what can be enforced or what can't be enforced, and it's a hard one to answer because there's not one single answer for one example. It all varies.
Are there other examples in the basin where the reduction is agreed but pending actual outcome?
Yes, SIDLAM program has similar arrangements, so it's 605 gigalitres granted up front essentially as a credit to the accounts. And then at the end of the projects, which is end of this calendar year, there's an accounting reconciliation of that. So if those projects aren't delivered, that's got a built-in accountability mechanism in that program. There was no similar sort of mechanism in the toolkit program, but we see other examples of instances where the benefit's given up front. But it was put to us in the inquiry that the reason that the 70 gigalitres was provided up front was because there was no connection between the reduction on the one hand and this program of activities to produce environmental outcomes on the other. The evidence before us in the inquiry suggested otherwise, and that's our first finding in the report. Yes. Is actually these things are linked. There is a relationship here, and it's quite clear. It's actually written into the basin plan.
Yes, as we are. Just on the audits, to follow on a question from Senator Canavan, you'll circle back on this inquiry. For audits, what's the accountability flow after an audit? You come back again and see if the audit findings have been accommodated?
Yeah, so we do our audits, then the jurisdiction responds.
Yes.
And then depending on their response, yes, we go back. We've got an internal process that we go back and follow up, and we're following up currently on some older audits that we have done. So yes.
So that when we next meet at estimates, those audits you referred to, you'll have had a response.
We've already had the response.
So we get, so there's two pieces to that. One is under the Water Act, agencies have a statutory period of time in which to provide a response to the Inspector General. So those responses are provided. Quite often what we see is they're provided as the audit report is going out, so we know immediately whether agencies accept those recommendations or reject them. The last two audits we've just completed on New South Wales water resource plans, those recommendations have been accepted in full by the agencies who were audited. And then what we do is go back over time and check that, yes, they were accepted, but have they been implemented? And that's what we're doing at the moment on a number of audits.
Right, thank you. No further questions, Chair.
Thank you, Senator McLaughlin. With that, I'll say thank you very much, Inspector General and your team, for your attendance and your evidence here today, and you go with the committee's appreciation.
Thank you.
I now call the Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water in relation to outcome 4, which is to do with health of rivers and wetlands, enhancing the sustainability, efficient and productive use of Australia's water resources, and that extends also to environmental, water and aquatic ecosystems division, as represented by the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, Murray-Darling Basin Authority, National Water Grid Authority. Thanks. While everyone's coming to the table, we had initially had our evening short break scheduled for 8:45. As we went late and carried on a bit further, we'll take that at 9 and resume at 9:15, just so everyone's aware what we're doing. All right. Now, welcome Mr. McConville. Welcome Mr. Andrew McConville, Chief Executive Officer of the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, and Dr. Simon Banks, Head of Division, Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder. Do either of you wish to make an opening statement?
No, Senator.
Wonderful. In which case, we'll throw it open to questions, and I'm looking to my right, Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, is Miss Anthea Harris working on the Water Act review at the moment?
Senator, Anthea Harris was appointed to the Water Reviewer some months ago. Initial work was undertaken by Anthea in consultation at the early stages of the Water Act review. Obviously, with her appointment to oversee work with respect to fuel, that work has been a lot less. In response, we have appointed a deputy reviewer to help with that process. We've continued to work in terms of First Nations engagement because there's a First Nations advisor to the Water Act review, and we're keeping a sense of what Anthea's requirements are, and we'll take that under advisement as we go through the process.
So who's the deputy?
Thank you, Senator. Edwina Johnson, Acting Division Head, Water Policy Division. Vanessa O'Keefe is the deputy.
Vanessa O'Keefe. She was appointed the deputy after Miss Harris became the fuel SAR, or whatever the word is. It's the colloquial term. Yep, after. Okay. So she hadn't been involved in the Water Act review. Sorry, before that.
That's right, Senator.
Okay. All right. Is Miss Harris being paid at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. So Ms Harris has invoiced the department for 6 days of work. So as Mr Sullivan said, she was appointed in late February. So she did 6 days of work for the Water Act review before the 19th of March when she was appointed as the head of the Fuel Security Task Force. So she's invoiced us for that 6 days. As Mr Sullivan said, since her appointment to head up the Fuel Security Task Force, she's done very minimal work, so in the order of just a few hours. So the bulk of the payment was for a period before she started as the Fuel Security Coordinator.
She'll be paid for that work as well, those few hours?
That's correct, Senator.
You just haven't been invoiced yet?
Exactly.
What was the invoice for the 6 days?
So it was she's paid. So it was $18,365.30, including GST.
Right. Does she have an hourly rate as such?
She's got a daily rate, which is $2,750, GST exclusive.
Right. Okay. In Finance and Public Administration this evening, it was revealed that Miss Harris is being paid $233,000 for 3 months' work. It's the equivalent of $1 million a year. I mean, how can it be justified to have that much payment for that work, $1 million a year, effectively, and then be paid on top for the work here as well?
Well, Senator, for our project, we had budgeted up to 100 days of the independent reviewer for the course of the review. As I say, at the moment, we paid Ms Harris for 6 of those days, and we haven't been invoiced for another few hours.
Yeah, but if you're getting paid $1 million a year, I mean, I'm not quite sure how you can justify the other hours to be charged at, well, what is $2,750? That's a good $400 an hour. Charge out, right? I don't quite get that you could do both jobs. If it's $1 million a year job, you'd need to be pretty much super full time on that, I would have thought.
I think that's the reason she hasn't really invoiced us.
Well, she is, but she is going. Apparently, you're expecting her to invoice further while she's doing this other job at $1 million a year.
I think what the official said was that we expect her to invoice us for the few hours work that she has done since then.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general public are shocked that people get paid $1 million a year to do administrative work, but okay, that's the rates that are set. I think if we're going to provide people that sort of payment, we'd expect them to be solely focused on that job.
Well,
because effectively now you're letting people double dip into what is a very generous level of payment that no Australian would, I think.
I think that's what we said. She's not doing both jobs at once,
Well, I think
Senator. She's not doing both jobs at once.
Yeah.
And that's why
But, I mean,
that's why we've appointed.
I mean,
Dr.
if the issue is if you're getting paid $1 million a year, you're probably not or shouldn't be working, standard 9 to 5 hours, right?
Well, that
I was in the other committee before, and she hasn't met with a bunch of people in the oil supply chain either. I don't know what's going on here.
well, we can't obviously speak to the work that she's doing in the fuel role, but in terms of the work that Ms Harris has done on this review, what you've heard is that she undertook a total of around 6 days' work, which she has invoiced us for. She has done an additional handful of hours, which she will invoice us for, and we have appointed a deputy reviewer to step in and take on a lot of that work.
So consultation's continuing now.
So thank you, Senator. As Mr Sullivan said, we've intentionally started consultation with First Nations peak bodies. The bulk of the consultation, which is published on, so the timelines are published on the department's website, is that we're planning for the Water Act review, the key discussion paper to be released in early July and run July and August. And then later on in the year to run a consultation on a draft report. Now, importantly, we've been looking to align the Water Act review with also the Basin Plan review, which authority colleagues can talk more to. We've really been quite conscious about the risks of stakeholder fatigue and sort of making sure we're really looking to sequence those 2 reviews appropriately.
So, but Ms Harris is going to miss these consultations. How is she going to adequately then conduct the Water Act review if she hasn't been involved in the First Nations consultations?
So that, Senator, we do have the First Nations advisor, Dr Tegan Shields, who is running those consultations.
But the overall person, so who's in charge? Is Ms Harris still in charge ultimately of what is produced by the Water Act review?
Yes, Ms Harris is still, that's right, the independent reviewer.
How is she going to adequately come to conclusions when she'll miss such a large part of the consultations?
Whether it was Ms Harris or anyone else, I don't think it was ever intended that the overall reviewer, would attend every consultation session.
But she's going to miss a fair share. I struggle to understand why not just appoint a new person. Why do you need to keep Ms Harris on?
It was unclear.
She's got a big job to do now. It's a very serious job. Why not just appoint a new person so someone can be it's not a full-time job, but can be focused and involved as much as possible for the people of the basin?
At the outset of the fuel issues, Senator, we, from a water perspective, didn't know how long Ms Harris's tenure would be with that fuel position. We've appointed or the government's appointed the deputy reviewer. It was always envisaged that there would be a range of specialist support for the lead reviewer, regardless of whether it was Ms Harris or someone else. And so the crunch time comes really in terms of consultation, as Ms Johnson said, when we go out with the MDBA to talk about the Basin Plan review and the Water Act in concert. And I think that's a critical time where a lead reviewer will need to be there.
So how many consultation sessions have occurred since Ms Harris took on the fuel supply task force coordinator role?
Thanks, Senator. So we've, I don't have the number, but can easily take it for you on notice. We've met, as the department officials, we've met with bodies like the National Irrigators Council, the National Farmers Federation. There was a workshop led by Dr Shields today. There was a webinar, I think that was last week. So the consultation really, and again, we've really been quite intentional in trying to sequence this with the Basin Plan review as well. And so it was, this sort of plan of starting to consult after the Basin Plan review consultation ended on the 1st of May. It was sort of quite intentional in terms of just not overburdening stakeholders with consulting on too many things at once.
So you mentioned earlier you're focusing on the First Nations. Have you adjusted the schedule of consultation because of the fuel supply work?
Certainly we've built in all sort of relevant information in terms of landing on that consultation schedule.
We've also been conscious of the cost of consultation. I think in our original planning we envisaged being in the basin on the ground. Obviously that does come at a cost for punters.
Let's go back to my question. Have the schedule of consultations changed since the appointment of the fuel supply task force coordinator?
What I'm trying to say
on the
is
19th of March?
that some of the consultation sort of have been changed irrespective of whether Ms Harris was there or not, because of the issues with respect to fuel and getting farmers with increased diesel prices, etc. So we're trying to do more online. We're trying to be adaptive. We're trying to do now more lining it up with the MDBA's Basin Plan Review. And also and to be honest, yes, we've taken into account the fact that Ms Harris hasn't been available.
Okay, so it's yes, so effectively the Water Act review is now being relegated.
No.
No, I don't
You just said you're relegating it, or you're changing it.
I didn't say
because of the
relegating.
fuel
It's
supply
relegated
issues.
except for you.
Right. Well, people can make their own judgments, but that's the clear conclusion from the evidence here. Just to go back to us, who's paying the invoice? That was you. You're paying. That your department's paying for the 6 days and the other hours we might see. Have you sought any advice about potential conflicts of interest now on this review for Ms Harris?
Certainly before the government appointed Ms Harris, and equally the deputy reviewer.
Before this, which
before
appointment? Sorry.
Before the appointment of Ms Harris at the end of February.
The Water Act appointment?
That's correct,
yes, right, yep.
Yep. We undertook a full request for conflict.
What about since the fuel supply coordinator appointment? Have you sought any advice since then?
No, we haven't, Senator.
I mean, I think now there are questions because Ms Harris is being paid $1 million a year equivalent by the government, and now being asked to do an independent review of the government. Doesn't seem all that independent.
Well, I don't know whether questions were asked at PM&C estimates about whether Ms Harris completed a conflict of interest declaration in taking up the second role, the fuel coordinator role. We obviously wouldn't be aware of that. That's being managed by PM&C.
No, but you're clearly aware that she's being paid now an enormous amount of money by the government. And I guess she has to be paid for the review and all that, but I don't see how she could be classified as independent now. She's on the payroll of the government to a significant degree. So how is this? This is just now an intergovernmental review, not an independent review of the Water Act.
Well, I don't know that Ms Harris would be the first person who held a government-funded position who was commissioned by a different part of government to undertake a review. So I'm not
sure if such a person would be getting paid $1 million a year salary.
Well,
I don't know. Have you got examples you can tell us?
We can go back and look at who was appointed to do reviews when you were.
That's probably why you should have sought advice. Maybe if you'd gotten advice, you could have provided those examples. But now you're talking in hypotheticals.
Well, so are you, with respect.
No, it's not a hypothetical. She's being paid the equivalent of $1 million a year.
You are speculating about hypothetical conflicts.
No, I've just outlined the conflict. It's a question of whether it's...
I would be very confident that Ms Harris would not be the first person to be in this position.
Okay, well, that is just speculation, not evidence. But yes,
the evidence
Mr.
is
Sullivan.
that she's done a couple of hours' work since she's been appointed in the fuel role, and that's been the limit of her work on the fuel.
But she's still responsible for the ultimate conclusions. That's what we just went through. She's still the boss.
I've given you an answer. You don't accept the answer.
Okay. I don't understand why you can't just appoint someone else. I mean, surely there are other people that can do this review. And this review is very important. So is the fuel supply role. No one's denying that. Why not just appoint another person? What's so special about Ms Harris that she needs to have two jobs?
Mr Sullivan has already taken you through the timeline of what the expectations were of Ms Harris and when the consultation is going to begin in earnest.
So when's the review due to conclude?
At the end of February 2027, Senator.
Okay, and that hasn't changed?
No, that's correct, Senator.
Okay, all right. I know a lot of people have been putting a lot of effort into this, and I think they'll be a bit concerned that the government's not really taking it all that seriously, and it would be a shame to undermine
that's your
that. So just moving to the Basin Plan Review then, and the discussion paper that came out. The discussion paper states that capital expenditure into infrastructure is well below what's necessary, and much of the River Murray's infrastructure is well below its end of life. How extensive is this risk? Has there been some assessment of what percentage of infrastructure is beyond its end of life?
Thanks, Senator. Andrew McConville, Chief Executive of the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. So the infrastructure sits obviously under the Murray-Darling Basin Agreement, not the Basin Plan, but it's an issue that has been highlighted. There are at present 14 risks that sort of sit outside what we would say an acceptable tolerance. We are working with the joint programs to try and get an uplift, Senator, in funding both OPEX and CAPEX, but current levels are below what we believe needs to be expended in order to ensure the life of those assets, beyond their calendar life, let's say that. You asked for a percentage, Senator. I couldn't give you one off the top of the head.
But 14, you've got 14 assets.
14 risks that sit outside our...
Sorry, 14.
14 assets that sit outside. And then that's, we run to several hundred assets, but they are, there are some significant pieces in that that need to be looked at.
Maybe if you, rather than list the 14, if you take on notice of 14, but are there some significant ones?
So no, Senator, we're looking at Hume Dam trash racks and irrigation outlets, Lake Victoria outlet regulator, Mildura Weir, probably the three largest and most significant, Senator.
Right, okay, so there's some of the, they're the big significant ones, if you could take the other 14. Is there any indicative costs on how big this underinvestment is?
Senator, over the life, several $100 million that we would be looking to, now that's over the life of those assets.
And that includes CAPEX and OPEX. 30-year
lifespan. We are currently working with the joint venture and the states to look at where we can obtain an uplift. We did receive, through the joint venture program, an uplift of $26 million in this current calendar year to support sort of necessary expenditure, and that was led by the Commonwealth. But we would certainly wanting to...
When you say led, so...
As in the Commonwealth stepped forward first and then the states came in behind. A component of that, Senator, the 26 was the total put in by the states. It works on a formula, but all states came to the table there. And we would be looking to work with the states to try and obtain an uplift in both OPEX and CAPEX through the joint venture programs as we work on also moving towards a 4-year budget cycle for the joint venture.
That's 700 million rough. I know it's
very
just a rough
Senator,
figure.
yes.
But that presumably is calculated just on maintaining these assets, is it? It's not looking at potential upgrades or...
Well, undertaking some of the necessary repairs and maintenance, Senator, that would allow us to extend the life of those assets, yes.
But it hasn't looked at maybe making them bigger or...
not making them bigger, Senator. It's about continuing the operability of those assets.
If there's no assessment being done of that, like if we're going to spend 700 million, maybe look at whether another few $100 million could lead to a bigger uplift in performance, a greater efficiency.
Well, Senator,
assessment being done of that?
I'll get Masiki, Head of River Operations, to comment as well. And when we're looking at infrastructure decisions in the state, well, they will rest very directly with the state. So you mentioned Burrinjuck, that would be a state decision. We deal through the joint venture only with the River Murray assets.
Okay. So this is only River Murray.
It's River Murray assets, Senator, yes.
So there's a lot more, obviously, that could be in the same boat.
Potentially, Senator, but in terms of the Basin Plan Review and the discussion paper that was put out, the reference there was...
Reference was to River Murray
to the River Murray assets.
So will this Basin Plan Review look at those other assets in the Murrumbidgee system and elsewhere?
Not as part of the Basin Plan Review, Senator. I mean, we can highlight that, coming through the submissions process, there are calls to look at the quality of infrastructure and whether that be fish passage, whether that be updates to weirs and locks, but it extends beyond the realm of the Basin Plan, Senator, to look at assets that sit within a state jurisdiction.
But it is something I've written to state and territory ministers, water ministers, asking them to tip in more funding towards this in the same way that we are.
Yeah, well, look, we're about to break. I just want to stress, I've spent a lot of time in these areas the last few months, and it is a big topic of conversation.
I'm happy to take some of those questions.
And I raised Burrinjuck because, particularly around Griffith, given the importance of Burrinjuck to them, and it's, I think, is it already over 100 years? I'm getting confused. I think it is already over 100 years old, is it? Or no, maybe it's just coming up to 100 years old.
No, Burrinjuck is not that old, Senator.
So it's not...
a question for New South Wales.
Too far off that. But, okay, all right. Thank you, Chair.
We will break now for a short break, and we'll be back at 9:15, please. Thank you very much. All right, thank you all. We'll resume our session and I'll go to Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up where we left off, this underinvestment, is that, or has anyone assessed whether that is posing a potential safety risk of the dams themselves?
Senator, I mean, we continue to maintain all of the oversight and ensuring that the dams remain safe, and that is the first step in all of it. But there is work that needs to be done in particular pieces of infrastructure, and that's what the forward asset plan is designed to do, and get those risk levels down.
When you say work to be done, there's investment that has to be made.
Investment that has to be made, so yes.
I mean, I'm sure you're aware that 30-odd years ago there were movements in Hume Dam,
yes,
and large concerns about the potential impact of that. It's very close to the town of Albury, Wodonga. Has there been any assessment of that particular piece of infrastructure?
I might ask Ms Hickey to limp on up here,
yeah,
Senator,
sorry, maybe she should have
give you
stayed here,
a much more informed answer than I'm able to give.
Steps up. Sorry about that. I suppose while coming up, I've got similar questions about Mildura Weir as well.
Thank you, Senator. Ms Jackie Hickey, Executive Director, Murray-Darling Basin Authority. I believe your question was around the safety risk associated with Hume Dam, and I think you referred to the past event in the mid-1990s when the Hume Dam wall moved, the left abutment. The Hume Dam itself, so the works that was done on that abutment have now rendered that part of the structure very safe. What happens as part of meeting state dam safety requirements, which is governed overarching by a set of national guidelines, the Australian National Committee on Large Dams, you might have heard about them.
Yes, I'm familiar with that, yes.
Appropriate societal risk assessments need to be done on such major storages or structures. That has been performed many times for Hume Dam. It has recently been updated. We remain below the limit of tolerability, so it is within the societal risk tolerance that is accepted under those ANCOLD guidelines. However, we have an ongoing commitment to demonstrate that we're continuing to implement works to bring them to as low as reasonably practicable. And so there is further work that's about to be commissioned to better understand things like the geology, because we do know there are some faults in the region, and there is ongoing very comprehensive dam safety monitoring and assessments that are done on a regular basis.
Okay, well, very, very important. I mean, I note, given the potential underinvestment here, it seems strange to me that, again, particularly given the risks there, the government continues to pursue water buybacks. How much funding has the government allocated to water buybacks in the recent budget?
Division, Water Infrastructure Investment Division. There's no announcements around additional funding in this budget for water purchase. There is, those water programs are ongoing, and
well, how much? I didn't ask for additional. How much is allocated for water recovery through purchase of water directly from licence holders?
Those funds, Senator, are not for publication, as it compromises the negotiation position.
It's a load of absolute crap. I mean, the government always used to do that.
I don't think you need to treat the public servants like
I'm just going to call it out. I've got limited time because we're over. Well, I'm going to call it as I see it, Minister. It is rubbish because previous governments did publish those figures under previous water recovery schemes. The original basin plan had a detailed split between water recovery from purchase, including Labor governments, may I add, and infrastructure programs. The lack of transparency of this government cuts across many, many departments and programs, but how would that in all or any way impact the commercial negotiations, given it wouldn't commit the government to a particular amount of water? It would just be a set of funds that you obviously have.
Senator, I can talk about what we have purchased and talk about the funds that we have spent.
Well, I'm not so much interested in that. So there is an amount of funds in the budget for water recovery.
There is a government has a commitment to recover water to deliver the basin plan up to 2027 through both 450.
Okay, but there is an amount of water funds within the budget flowing through to the underlying cash balance.
We do have an amount of funds to continue water purchase up to 2027.
Okay. And those calculations are based on recovering how much water?
Well, a contribution towards 450 gigalitre target. At the moment, we have approval to purchase up to 300 gigalitres, and we've made good progress on that, as well as funding towards bridging the gap. And I think we're over 99% of the way there on that.
So the money, the money in the budget is based on roughly 300 gigalitres of water recovery. Is that right?
Correct, Senator. I think we've recovered at the moment, we've, as published on Oz Tender, around 200 gigalitres of that.
There was a Weezer review, I'm told, that estimated this would cost around $1.3 billion. Are you familiar with that? Or?
I'm familiar with the Weezer review, Senator.
Okay, is that about right?
I'm not going to guess. Senator.
Well, it's certainly at least around 700 million, which Mr. McConville says is needed to upgrade water infrastructure. Minister, why is the government prioritising water buybacks over making our dams safe?
Well, we're not doing that. We're doing both. And, you know, I know the National Party has never supported the voluntary water recovery targets that we've set.
No, we haven't.
We do, because we believe in the long-term future of the Murray-Darling Basin.
So, given you said you're doing both, how much is being allocated to upgrade dams right now in this budget?
I think Mr. McConville gave you some figures earlier about what's being spent this financial year, but in addition... 26 million, and that's all. But in addition, if you let me finish, in addition, we are funding hundreds of millions of dollars of water efficiency and water infrastructure projects across the basin. So,
just trying to get to the bottom. Why is the government investing less than $20 million in the upgrading of dams that have reached the end of their life that support communities, food production, safety, obviously, but allocating up to billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars at least, to the purchase of water, which undermine the economic basis of those food-producing communities? Well, I know you don't agree with us on this, but we believe that it is necessary to recover that 450 gigalitres for the environment. I know the National Party recovered, I think, 2 gigalitres from memory, but we take that target seriously because we believe that it's necessary for the long-term health of the Murray-Darling Basin and the industry and communities that rely on it. Yeah, look, all budgets are about priorities, and the priorities of your government are very clear then. Your priorities of the government are to put in front of food production, jobs, the very safety of these communities, if the worst happens, over and above the mad pursuit of a particular target, an arbitrary number, and of course a deal you do with the Greens. It's very, very clear what those priorities are. And well, that was a target that was set before our government came into office, and of course your government ignored it. It was actually set by the former Labor government. Yeah, and it remained in place when you were in government for 10 years. But yes, but we weren't going to pursue it through water recovery, as you've said. I'm glad you've said the record. We did not believe in undermining the economic base of communities. We'd much prefer to invest in infrastructure. We could probably kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Well, we're doing if we upgraded the dams, made them safer and more modern, we'd save water. We're doing that as well. So has there been an assessment of, or is this review, which these figures have, well, not really come from, but I suppose the starting platform for the Basin Plan review is the need, or one of the starting points is the need for this investment. Is there the potential in this review to look at a reprioritisation of the money allocated to water buybacks to instead invest in infrastructure to deal with this issue of ageing dams, as well as potentially recover water as well? Because if the dams are more efficient, you might get a bigger bang for your buck.
Well, Senator, when we look at the Basin Plan review, we'll make recommendations as to where we think the focus of the future of the Basin Plan needs to be. Separate step entirely for government then to determine how it might want to allocate its money to address the recommendations of the review. At this stage, Senator, I wouldn't and cannot preempt the outcomes of what the review might look at, but as you said, we have highlighted in the discussion paper that we need to see continued investment in infrastructure across the basin as that infrastructure continues to age.
Are you at all prevented from making such a recommendation? Are you allowed to recommend that perhaps funding for water buyback should be diverted to infrastructure upgrades?
No, Senator. I would say it's not for us to determine where the government wants to spend its money. What we would do what we would do, Senator, is highlight where we think investment needs to occur. But in terms of a policy decision,
I totally understand. Ultimately, it's a decision for government about where the money goes. But are you at all? Does the terms of reference or instructions restrict you from making recommendations about the water buyback program?
No, Senator, technically it doesn't. There's nothing in any terms of reference around the review as to where the authority might decide to place its recommendations.
Okay. All right, thanks for that. Is this the right area to talk about the National Water Grid?
It is, Senator.
Okay, great. So I believe there's been cuts, or is that program completely gone now? Or?
No, Senator, the National Water Grid Fund remains in place. Through this budget, there was $103.9 million of unallocated funding that was returned as a savings as part of the budget measures, but the program remains open. And I think since 2022, more than $1 billion has been committed to the National Water Grid Fund to construction projects, including for...
How much of the fund is left?
Senator, I think there is a I think we've got 300 projects still in place. My colleague to check that.
Senator Mark Darrow, branch head of the National Water Grid branch. From 2025-26 through till 2034-35, there's $1.9 billion left in the National Water Grid Fund.
And can we get that broken down by year?
Yes.
On notice. How much of that is unallocated?
Senator, the savings measure in the budget returned $103.9 million of unallocated funding, meaning that the program is fully committed.
Yeah, so there's no unallocated funding left following that budget measure?
Yes, but it's not the first time there's been no unallocated funding in the National Water Grid Fund.
So effectively it's now closed to new projects?
No, Senator. The process for the National Water Grid Fund has always been that projects go to ERC and Cabinet for consideration. Any new projects would go through the regular process of proposals being put forward by states and territories, assessed in line with the National Water Grid investment framework, and recommendations made to government for their consideration in amongst other priorities.
Is one of those 300 projects for Narendra's water supply?
Senator, I think the business case that was in the media, is that you're about to ask?
Well, I'd like the details of that. I'm aware of the business case. How much is for that? And
just give me a moment to get the project.
Senator, I think the Narendra water treatment plant detailed business case, the Australian government's committed $900,000, if I understand that correctly.
$100,000?
$900,000 towards the business case.
Has that been spent or just allocated?
No, Senator, the New South Wales schedule was signed on the 14th of May 2026.
Okay, all right. I believe Narendra has applied to actually build a water treatment plant. Are you aware of that?
That is the detailed business case for the water treatment plant.
No, but they need the plant. So is that something the department's assessed?
The detailed business case would need to be completed to support a proposal for a construction project.
Have you been to Narendra?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's not that far away from here. It might be good to go. You just run the taps. They need a water treatment plant. It's a 5,000 people town. It's a $30 million cost. I don't know what we're mucking around for. I mean, sure, we have to do a design, but there's plenty of allocations of funds. We just talked the water buybacks. We don't know where we're going to buy them back. There's plenty of allocated funds before we do a business case. Obviously, before the funds are released, we have to go through those processes, but I think they clearly deserve that upgrade. Be good if someone could go and visit the town. It's not far away.
Senator, I might just correct the value of the total project for the detailed business case is $1.81 million with $900,000
from the Commonwealth,
from 900 from
New South Wales. Yeah, well, it's just for me, and obviously I've spent some time there recently, but it's just an absolute disgrace that we've spent $10 billion on a Murray-Darling Basin plan, and a town of 5,000 people doesn't have clean drinking water. in the basin.
It is unfortunate that there are a number of towns around Australia, including Narendra and a range of Aboriginal communities across Australia that don't have the sort of quality of drinking water that we would expect. We've obviously funded a range of projects there. I have made the point to you, Senator Canavan, I know you don't like to hear it, that it was never funded under the Coalition government. First time the Coalition raised it as an issue was during the Farrer by-election, but we have funded a business case for that project.
Yeah, look, I don't care about the politics. I just think people deserve, particularly a town of that size. I mean, obviously it's these things cost money, but 5,000 people, that's not a small town. And as I say, they're smack bang in the middle of the impact of all these water buybacks, but they themselves can't have clean drinking water. They see it just go down the river.
We have funded many projects across the basin, infrastructure projects, water efficiency projects. As you've already heard, there isn't currently money available to fund those types of projects, but the first step is to do the business case so that we have some understanding of the design and the cost of that kind of a project.
There was money. There was money before you cut it in this budget.
Well,
there would have been more than enough. $100 million. There was money there.
You were one of many people in the Coalition calling for us to make savings in the budget, and we've done that. Now you don't like that.
Well, no, I've got plenty of other ideas for savings. Let's go through the net zero program. But,
so you want to choose the savings.
But $100 million you cut, and that means that Narendra doesn't have clean drinking water because you've taken away the money from them.
As I said,
it's your decision.
The Coalition,
don't try and back away from it. Own it.
Narendra didn't just start getting brown drinking water when this government
Actually, that's not completely correct. It's had an issue for a while, but they had a flood in
Why did you not do something?
They had a flood in 2020. If you go out there, it's not that far away. So I'd invite you to go out there and talk to the community.
I know you went out there for the
They had a flood in 2021. Had a flood in 2021. It caused...
Senators, I appreciate that both of you have strong views on this. Senator Canavan, I'm going to rotate the call just for a moment.
Okay.
Come back to you.
No worries.
Senator McLaughlin.
Earlier this year, you made a declaration regards the Lower Murray River being critically endangered, and at the time you mentioned that this would guide government decision making. It was welcomed in South Australia. Is there anything you can point to from that declaration that has, in a positive sense, that has occurred from government decision making, or are we dependent upon the standards and the Environment Act?
I'm happy for the officials to provide you with more information on this. My recollection when we made that announcement was that my statement that it would guide future decisions, that would be not only around water management decisions but around investments in nature, and I guess, as you say, that's dependent upon the EPBC reform implementation generally. The conservation advice that was provided along with the declaration will obviously inform future government decision making around investments and programs and what we need to do to restore the health of the Lower Murray. But Senator McLaughlin, as I'm sure you appreciate as a South Australian, continuing to pursue the voluntary water recovery that we are doing in other parts of the basin is critical to restoring the health of the Lower Murray. And for those who say we shouldn't do those water buybacks, then that will continue to have a detrimental impact on the Lower Murray.
Thank you, Minister. I've got a couple of questions for the authority. I noticed in the Basin Discussion Plan paper, it's identified 11 of 109 surface water and groundwater SDL, sustainable diversion limits, are at risk. To me, that's a low number, given the stress on the Murray system. Does anyone have any understanding why only 10%? Because I've read some scientific analysis that suggests it should be higher.
Senator, thank you, and I'll get Dr. Coleman to comment as well. When we look at those 11 sustainable diversion limit units that are potentially at risk, and this is an initial assessment, and we've received submissions. One of those is the Lower Murray. There's also the New South Wales Murray, the Victoria Murray. So there is a substantial element there, the Lower Darling and the Upper Darling as well. So there are some significant reaches of river there, Senator. But I think the key is to understand why each of those STL units is considered at risk. So I'll get Dr. Coleman to comment a little bit more.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Senator. Dr. Matthew Coleman, General Manager of the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. So yes, you're correct, Senator. 11 of the 109 units we identified to be at risk. But a couple of points to add to that. Firstly, it's important to remember that of those 109 units, 80 of them are groundwater units. There's 29 surface water units. And the second point is that of the 11 units we identified to be at risk, 8 of them are surface water units, and they are substantial rivers across the basin. So while it might seem like a small percentage, it does reflect the a large proportion of the river reaches across the basin, and also some of the substantial reaches towards the end of the basin, such as the Lower Murray, Barwon Darling and Lower Darling.
I don't want to anticipate the review process, but I assume more information is going to come in through the review, and so that number could change. Is that
possible,
fair?
Senator. There's more modelling underway. We are obviously going through the 2,500 submissions that we received through that process. So yeah, very much at pains to say that they are initial assessments, and through that process it could be that some of those assessments might change. I wouldn't want to preempt that analysis, but that is possible.
Does the listing of the Lower Murray River as critically endangered by the Minister impact the review, or how the review is, the lens the review takes? Thanks.
There's probably two aspects from the listing in terms of the touch points with the MDBA. The first is a regulatory aspect insofar as our river operations and whether those river operations constitute an action. And so we're working with the department to look at that and whether that would require approval under the EPBC Act. So that work is underway. In terms of the environmental management aspect, I think there's a fair degree of complementarity between that and the operation of the basin plan. It's sort of both intended to support those sort of environmental and ecological outcomes.
Have we taken into, or will we take into account the salination and of the lower lakes, near the sea, and the algal bloom?
Thank you, Senator. So the assessment process that we're running through is we do look at the environmental condition of the lower lakes, the Coorong, the Murray Mouth, and so through the submission process we're absorbing more information from the community, their lived experience, their observations of the environmental condition. So we look at the environmental condition, but importantly our role is to look at the whether the water management arrangements that are in place will support a sustainable environment. So having looked at the broad condition, we then focus our attention to that specific question of, do we think the water management arrangements, do we think the SDLs will provide enough environmental water to support the environmental condition?
Is there a piece of work being done around maximising environmental water and the positive environmental achievements with a certain amount of water? Because there's been a lot of discussion about how much water, but there's also a growing discussion that I'm understanding about leveraging existing water to its maximum effect. So, for example, not all fish species are coming back in certain places, and yet they've had more water. Yeah,
certainly, Senator. As we look forward and as we try and develop a basin plan that adapt that changing climate, you would absolutely be wanting to use the water that has been recovered in the environment, sort of some 3,000 gigalitres or thereabouts, to the maximum possible value that you can. And I use data in the environmental sense, and certainly, again, a lot of the submissions that have been coming through the process of consultation point to that also. So you want to be creating the conditions to make sure that any water that is recovered for the environment is used as effectively as it can be.
And, Senator Simon Benz, Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, I'll just add our focus is absolutely on how we can utilise the Commonwealth's water that has been recovered to achieve those environmental outcomes, and that's considering the flows that are already in the system, how we can work with those existing operations. But down in South Australia, we've made some really significant contributions to maintaining the lower lakes at the levels they need to be held at, ensuring connectivity between the lower lakes and the Coorong. So it's an absolute focus for us in how we maximise the benefits we get from the water we hold. We also, when we're using water up in the Victorian or other catchments further up, we certainly look to get multiple benefits from the water as it comes down the system and ultimately into the lower lakes to achieve the outcomes we're aiming for.
Can I ask you just take on notice to direct me to where you've carried out those initiatives? I don't want to take estimates off track on those specific examples that you've given in the lower lakes for me. Thank you. And my last usual question is, what's the health of the Murray in South Australia as it flows to the lower lakes as we speak?
I'll have to come back to you with specifics, Senator, but what we are seeing for the Coorong Lower Lakes Murray Mouth is that there's been substantial recovery in the environmental health of that system since the Millennium Drought. A big feature of that recovery is the water that's been recovered under the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, but we do still see that the Coorong Lower Lakes Murray Mouth remains a partly degraded system. We can see this specifically for water quality in the South Coorong, some of the vegetation there, some of the water bird species, and also Murray Mouth flows. So there's been substantial improvement, but we are still seeing some parts of the environment are degraded.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for appearing again tonight. Could you have first an update on the Paradise Dam works? When we last spoke, you indicated the Crisafulli government was still evaluating the business case and had not made a request for funding. Has there been any change to this?
Senator, no, we do not have a business case from the Queensland government. I don't believe the Queensland government has a business case either from Sunwater.
Okay, thank you. I also asked about the reason the project sponsor had pulled out of what is a project of national significance, the Urana irrigation project. Mr. Darrow.
Yes, Senator.
Took that on notice. It wasn't, however, placed on notice. I'm trying to understand why the sponsor pulled out before asking the Crisafulli government why they aren't proceeding with this project. Can you give me a simple rundown, please?
Pardon me, Senator. Can you repeat the question about the question on notice? The response
Mr. Darrow
was provided.
Took that on notice, is what I said.
Yes.
It wasn't, however, placed on notice.
Senator, we did table a response, sorry.
Yes, Senator. The Urana Water Scheme detailed business case is publicly available on the Queensland Government website, and I provided a link for that as well. On the environmental impact statement material, the Queensland's Office of the Coordinator General published the terms of reference for the EIS on 31 March 2021, and it records that the EIS process was withdrawn in December 2022. This is a matter between the proponent and the Queensland Government.
Thank you. Do any of the projects in your project list include recycling sewage and/or grey water and directing the output into drinking water, including into a storage dam from which drinking water is drawn?
I would have to take it on notice, Senator, but no. I would suggest that the answer is no, but I will take it on notice.
Are you particularly interested in South East Queensland?
Senator, I don't have
No, I'm just saying it.
Yeah.
What is your target for water consumption per person per day? How much water do you actually have to provide to keep water up to people, stock and station, irrigation, more people, more food and industry? We've got record immigration. What's your target per person per day?
Senator, it's not a question for
Senator.
National Water Grid.
We don't have a specific target, Senator, from the National Water Grid Fund.
Remember, Senator Roberts, remember that most of the responsibility for providing water, especially for drinking water, if that's your focus, rests with state and local governments. We have a role in funding some of that infrastructure.
Okay, I'll just remind you of this from your website. The National Water Grid Investment Framework ensures funding decisions guide long-term, responsible investment in water infrastructure. It also helps the government plan for future challenges, including climate change, population growth, rising demand for water and farming. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, water demand in Australia rose by 12.9% from 2022-23 to 2023-24. A rapidly increasing population creates demand for more household water, up 6% in that period. Also from demand for food, water use up 14%. In actual terms, that represents another 1,965 gigalitres. In 1 year, that's a new Warragamba Dam every 18 months. Where are these Warragamba dams coming from? Where are the plans for more water to meet the needs of the last million new arrivals, let alone the 1 million more due by 2028? Where are they?
Senator Roberts, I know that it would be your party's policy to link all of these issues to migration. You just talked about the increasing demand for water for food production. That's not necessarily about feeding the Australian population. You would remember, I'm sure, that the vast majority of food produced in Australia is exported. So the demand for water is also partly about supporting the trade and businesses of farmers who produce
Senator, I
food.
know you want to weasel out of it, but the fact is that immigration is up, food production is up for whatever reason.
Immigration is actually coming down under our government.
It's up compared to 3 years ago.
It's
up
coming down
compared to 5
under
years
our
ago.
government. I know you don't accept that, but it's coming down.
750,000 for each of the last 3 years.
That's not correct.
Sorry?
We can produce the
3
figures
years
that
ago.
show.
3 years ago, 750.
I mean, this is not really the committee to get into this, but
correct. So
net
where are the future
migration is
Warragamba
falling
dams? You've got a water crisis happening. You've got a water crisis coming.
Senators, I think there's a bit of talking over each other. We're getting to the end of the evening. Let's do this in as clinical way as possible. Question and answer.
In general terms, from a federal government perspective, what we are doing to meet the demand for water across the country is helping to fund certain infrastructure projects.
Which ones?
Well, the projects that the National Water Grid has funded, which we've said we'll come back to you on notice about, but there's many of them. We are encouraging water efficiency. We are investing in water efficiency, including on farms. We are funding voluntary water buybacks. There are a range of activities that we are funding, but particularly when it comes to, restrictions on water consumption, that is generally determined by state and local governments or the owners of that infrastructure.
Where's the next Warragamba Dam coming? Where is it? It's 18 months we need a new Warragamba Dam. Every 18 months. Where are they?
Well,
they're not there.
That would generally be a matter for states.
You've got your WISER program, Water Infrastructure for Sustainable and Efficient Regions. Sounds nice. It's got a total, let's describe it first. Plugging leaks, building local pipelines and improving recycling facilities. $210 million total. How much will this water add up to from the WISER program? Will it be a Warragamba Dam every 18 months?
Senator, I need to take that on notice.
Last question on this bracket. Your website still lists projects that have been killed off by the Albanese government, including the Hewenden Irrigation Project, HIPCO. Why are council projects not removed or moved to a history page? Is it to give the impression the National Water Grid is actually expanding when it's not?
There were no announcements made about that project in the budget, Senator.
Previously?
Not that I'm aware of.
Will you check? Take that on notice? Thank you. I've got questions for the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder.
May I just ask how many, or how long do you think you'll need to?
10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask about the last time I info, the 6 new Indigenous water projects were provided funding under the National Water Grid Fund. Which projects were they?
Senator, I haven't got my EFO announcements in front of me. $18 million for Warrabinda water supply improvement in Queensland, 14.3 for network upgrade and water planning strategy in the Northern Territory,
13.7 million for Gove Peninsula water supply upgrade, $6 million for Halls Creek water security upgrade, $5.1 million for APY Lands water supply revitalisation, and $3.7 million for water needs in self-supplied remote communities in South Australia.
The measure said the funding had been reallocated, so was it reallocated from other projects?
Senator, I'll have to take that on notice.
Was Wilcannia one of the projects that funding was reallocated from?
Senator, I'll have to take that on notice.
So the projects that had funding removed, was that indicated to the communities themselves?
Senator, I'll have to take that on notice.
Well, did you let the state government, presumably state governments are involved in this, did you let them know about the particular projects that had lower funding?
I'm not sure. This was an announcement made in my EFO rather than the most recent budget. We may not have the information with us to explain decisions that were made several months ago in my EFO.
Right, okay. All right, well, you should, I mean, there weren't that many measures in my EFO. One of them was responsible investment in First Nations water infrastructure, $60 million over 4 years. And then the statement says the cost of this measure will be met by reallocating funding from within the National Water Grid Fund. I'm just trying to, it was funding reallocated from other projects to these projects.
It could have been, I don't recall either, Senator, so we'll have to take it on notice, but it could have been through reprofiling other funds, but we'll come back to you with the detail.
Right. Okay.
Senator, I might just add to that I think it's important to remember that overall, the National Water Grid Fund has more than 150 projects underway, worth about $1.8 billion, including 42 First Nations water infrastructure projects with $193 million attached to those, and they're all funded up through the National Water Grid Fund. And as to whether that, as to Mr Sullivan said, whether that relates to reprofiling of other projects within the grid fund, we'd have to come back to you on that.
Okay. Can I just check, I mean, this sort of connect to the basin plan, the 450 gigalitre target, can I just clarify how much of that is left to be recovered?
Senator, we expect to be at about 400 gigalitres overall, which is a combination of both water purchasing and other measures, including infrastructure, by the end of this year.
So 400 gigalitres, roughly?
That's where we expect to be by the end of this year, Senator.
So are you expect to be 400 gigalitres recovered or 400 gigalitres to go?
400 gigalitres recovered.
By the end of this year?
Correct, Senator.
How much is now?
From water purchase, we've published on AusTender 200 gigalitres of purchase, and I'll get you the figure for the rest. It's close to 300 gigalitres. I'm just trying to find the exact number. As of 31st of March, 246 gigalitres has been recovered via purchase, water-saving infrastructure and other methods.
That's the total amount? So I'm just...
That's correct, Senator. That's the total as of 31 March, 246.3 gigalitres.
So still 200 gigalitres. Do you have a target for how much that 200 gigalitres will be through buybacks?
Senator, we have a range of programs that deliver water recovery through the basin plan for that 450 target. It's both a mixture of purchasing and infrastructure. We currently have approval to purchase up to 300 gigalitres of purchasing to contribute to that 450 target.
Right. And so you reckon you'll be at, did you say 400 by the end of the year or 300? I'm getting confused. 400 by the end of the year in total. So then 50 to go. How are you getting the 50? Is that considered yet or been determined yet?
No, Senator. That we'll make some evaluations this year around what the approach for that is. As I said, we've got a range of programs in place to recover that water. It includes both infrastructure and water purchasing.
And my understanding of the water recovery, the water buybacks that may occur to get this other 200 gigalitres or the other 50 at the end of this year, if that's still to go, they're meant to meet 3 tests: that they enhance environmental outcomes, they minimise socio-economic impacts, and they achieve value for money. How do you ensure that a buyback achieves value for money?
Christine McRae, branch head for water recovery. So when we consider value for money, there are three elements that are important for us. There's environmental utility, which is can the water do what it needs to do for the environment to meet the objectives of the basin plan? Then also, can it contribute to that volumetric target? Does it have a long-term diversion equivalent that can contribute to the target? And then finally, we've got the financial factors. So that is the cost to purchase the water, the cost to maintain that water, etc. So we can consider all three of those in the willingness of our price to pay for a water right.
Do you have a ceiling for the price of water?
I think the best way to consider value for money is we might have a range or a consideration of the types of prices we may be willing to pay for different types of water rights. But ultimately, I think value for money really comes down to what the market suggests and the environmental utility of that water and how it can contribute to the 450.
All right. So what's the most expensive water you've bought for the, would you say 245 recovered, or is that all through water buybacks? Or
so of the 200 that we've published to date,
oh, 200. Sorry,
so that has been in the southern connected basin.
Right.
We haven't purchased any water in the north to date, and this is all publicly available on state water registers. The highest price we've paid, I think, is $11,100 for high security water downstream of the choke in the New South Wales Murray.
That's
the exact figure I would take on notice, but it is in that range.
It's very expensive. I mean, do you do any assessment of whether or not your purchases are pushing up the price of water in the market?
In the market on a permanent basis, or
well, even just in the current season.
Yeah,
do you assess that?
There has been an assessment of socioeconomic impacts on the purchase.
But I'm just particularly whether or not your purchases, because again, I've spent a lot of time there recently, and the big issue for a lot of people is the high price of water right now, especially to finish crops and the like, or to think about whether they will plant.
I can start taking the question. I think my colleague, Mr Coates, will be able to answer it in more detail. But there are many factors that do impact the cost of water on a year-to-year, season-to-season basis. Availability, of course, demand for different commodities, rainfall,
I mean,
etc.
we've got limited time and I'm trying to meet a deadline for other people. Just asked, do you assess, do you do a market test to say, okay, this is the current state of the market. If we were to buy such and such water at $11,000 a megalitre, it might have an impact on the market clearing price.
Yep, Phil Coates, branch head in the Water Policy Division. Yes, there's been modelling done on the 300 gigalitre scenario of water purchase that Mr Southwell explained, and the assessment of the impact on average allocation prices was in the order of 10%.
So your purchases increased water prices by 10%? That's what
the
assessment. Suggests. That modelling was done, when was that done?
That was done in November of 2025, prior to the approval of the purchase program that has been described.
All right. So, how much does that cost farmers extra? Did you put a figure on that? 10% increase in prices sounds a lot, actually.
Yeah. So the ABAS modelling has the increase in an average allocation price. Obviously, that averages across all different entitlement types. Big differences there in them. From $474 per megalitre to $523 per megalitre, so an additional $50 odd, but different impacts at different points on the
total cost to farmers across the southern basin. Do you have that figure?
The total cost of that.
Presumably, there's a volume times that difference by the volume.
You could reach that by multiplying that by the 300 gigalitre figure, and that's.
No, I meant how much water is bought in the temporary market, so to speak. That's a temporary water price, presumably?
That's the allocation price, yep.
Yep. And that's the one that's really killing farmers at the moment.
But what that modelling...
and the government, the modelling they know that this is going to have a tougher impact on farmers, and they proceed anyway.
The overwhelming driver of the increase in allocation markets at the moment is storage volumes in dams and rainfall, and that has a much greater impact than the marginal impact of the purchasing program.
10% ain't nothing to be sneezed at. That's a fair increase for particularly farmers that are often pretty marginal to start with.
Yeah, certainly don't deny the impact, but the modelling looks at impacts in different scenarios of how much water is available in storages, and and rainfall, and the impacts in dry years compared to wetter years is in the hundreds of percents compared to 10%.
And then how does that feed into the socio-economic test then? Do you have a look at, well, a 10% increase in temporary market is going to cause such and such less food production, perhaps some farms to shut up shop? Is there any assessment of that?
Yeah, the modelling goes through and looks at impacts on farm production and the gross value of irrigated agriculture production.
What was the results there?
Is an impact in the order of 1.8% from the program that's been approved, and that's in the report that's been published.
So we're producing roughly 2% less food.
Thanks
to the water buyback.
In southern
it's our food bowl.
But again, that's a short-term impact, right? So similarly, over time, farmers become more efficient. There are a lot of other changes and factors that are at play. So that's a counterfactual of the shock impact of the reduction in water into the system. That's not to say that food production will reduce by 2%. That's just
is there assessment then on how much that impacts food prices in the supermarket?
We have asked the question of ABARES, but when you look at Australia's agricultural production, excluding forestry and fisheries, in the order of 100 billion per annum, and we're talking here about an impact of around 100 million per year. There's the laws of supply and demand, so it's a very, very small...
But it depends what production that is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of citrus, for example. A lot's growing around some of these areas.
A lot traded,
You're
a lot of
not
export
easily able to replace that elsewhere,
well.
particularly at different times of the year where seasons might not line up and the like.
I would say relative
that
to
assessment
other factors,
hasn't been done. You haven't gone down to the granular level of, say, a citrus market.
I think relative to other factors, it would be very difficult to find.
I love how the public service think, 10%, 2%, nothing. I mean, some of these guys are on margins of less than that. Actually, the ABARES modelling, hang on, no one gave you the call, Minister. The margins...
You keep misrepresenting what officials are saying.
You keep interrupting me. The margins, ABARES report in 2023-24, the average broadacre farm margin was 0.8%.
Yeah, this is
the 2%, bang.
On one input into the production chain, and no one's saying that's...
No, but you're 2% lower gross value added, and their margins are less than that.
Yeah, I said it was 2% impact on the gross value of production.
I don't know how many farms you speak to. Okay, all right. So at what point, I know you've got these tests, at what point is the socio-economic impacts too great then, and you can't do the buybacks? Is there any? Is there any point at which you won't proceed with a buyback?
It's a decision for the Minister whether...
Minister, is there a threshold where you go, okay, because we're now in a drought, a lot of these areas are in a drought, you're in the market buying water while there's a drought.
When the department goes out to tender for voluntary water buybacks, no one is forcing anyone to sell their water rights. When the department goes out to tender, they are generally oversubscribed, and those tests are applied to determine which offers are accepted and which ones are not.
This is the point, though. Those people who don't volunteer still get hit, because during a drought, and I don't know if the modelling assumed a drought or not, it might have bigger than 10% impact because these areas are very dry right now, and you're in there buying scarce water. Doesn't matter if it's voluntary or not. Do you accept that the farmers who do not sell, who do not want to sell, still pay a price thanks to your buybacks? Do you accept that?
Yes, I do, and I also accept something that you don't accept, which is that if we sit by and do nothing, then that is going to be incredibly damaging to the agriculture industry and its communities as time goes on. You can protect... I know you don't really believe in climate change, you don't really believe in these things having an impact. We have just listed the Lower Murray Basin as critically endangered, and you can continue to put your head in the sand if you want to.
We spent $10 billion, and that's still the case. I mean, the problem here is that the problem is these.
Sorry, Senator McLaughlin, we're just giving up on the Lower Murray.
That's the National Party. These areas are not going. When are the lower lakes going to be fixed then?
Well, if you were listening,
they're
you
not
would have
going
just heard
to be through a program of 200 gigalitres of water.
If you were listening, you would have heard the evidence that it's recovering.
Senators talking over each other won't help at this point. Minister, if you want to finish what you were saying, and then I'll come back to you, Senator Canavan.
Well, I would like to finish what I was saying. Okay. Senator Canavan chose not to listen to the evidence that came out about 20 minutes ago, which is that the Lower Murray and the Coorong are beginning to recover, and that is at least partly about the water recovery efforts that have been undertaken. If you want to have an argument with Liberal Party senators from South Australia about it, go for your life.
So, Minister, did you reassess after this modelling was done in November and then we know this season's been subject to lower rainfall, did you reassess the buybacks because of those, the potential impacts in a low rainfall drought situation? Did you reassess the impact of the buybacks?
No, because our government is committed to reaching the 450 gigalitre target that is necessary for the long-term health of the Murray-Darling Basin.
So a target in 1 year here, is more important than helping farmers facing drought?
What would have been good, Senator Canavan, is that over the 10 years of the coalition, if more than 2 gigalitres had been recovered. But we are now acting, and that does mean recovering more water.
Why couldn't you, given that these farmers are in drought right now and paying through the nose for water, in fact the prices are higher than what you've modelled that I heard, why couldn't you just defer this buyback for a year or 2 years and wait until, hang on, I hadn't finished my question, and wait until there were more amenable conditions such that you wouldn't have such an impact on farmers in drought?
Because we saw what happened when governments wait and pause and do nothing, and that's that the Coorong is nearly entirely destroyed. And I don't think that's great for South Australia.
Okay, all right.
For example.
Well, clearly the government just does not care about farmers, and they do not care about the impact of their plan, and they are not properly applying these tests for buybacks. There doesn't seem to be any threshold beyond which they would stop the buybacks. I mean, if
that's your view.
Well, Minister, if the water price were $1,000 a megalitre, would you continue to water buybacks?
You've already heard that value for money is one of the factors we take into account.
So, is there would you ever consider pausing the buybacks if it were to have a detrimental impact on farmers?
That's a hypothetical situation. I'd consider that when we reach that situation.
It's not really hypothetical. I'm just saying, would you consider the impact on farmers, or are you wedded to have to deliver this 450 gigalitres?
We do consider the impact on farmers, but our government is committed to delivering the target after 10 years of inaction.
There doesn't seem to be any consideration of that whatsoever here.
I just clarify, Senator, the modelling does factor in years of drought and years of high rainfall. So that's an average, the numbers that I gave you before, and there are dry sequences in that modelling sequence.
And I appreciate the evidence and the frankness you provided, but it's clear the government doesn't consider that impact whatsoever. It wants to proceed with an arbitrary target in any 1 year, regardless of the impact on our nation's farmers. I cannot believe they're doing this during a drought. Farmers are really struggling in these areas. Have you gone to Griffith recently, Minister?
I went to Griffith when I was the Ag Minister, but I was in Northern Victoria only a few weeks ago.
Right.
Meeting with farmers, going on farm, meeting with environmentalists, meeting with a range of people.
Where in Northern Victoria?
Echuca, started in Bendigo, went up to Echuca, went to the Goulburn Valley. It was over at least 2 days.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to get to the Griffith area because that's an area where it does rely exposed heavily to the temporary water market, and they're really struggling right now, and they don't seem to have any ability to get their views heard by this government. How many jurisdictions have signed up to the intergovernmental agreement, the National Water Agreement?
At this point, none, other than the Commonwealth, of course.
Okay, all right. Have states raised concerns about the current agreement with the Commonwealth?
Well, I think it would be fair to say that most, if not all, states would like to see Commonwealth funding as a condition of them signing the agreement. And the point I've made to water ministers in those states is that one of the points of the National Water Agreement is to help inform Commonwealth funding.
Right. So
and as you've recognised, we've provided the states with an awful lot of money already.
Is there a certain time frame that you want to get the agreement signed?
I'd prefer that they'd signed it already, because that would help us, that would help inform future decisions from the Commonwealth about funding further water infrastructure.
Right. Has a copy of the water agreement been released?
I'm not sure.
Thanks, Senator. So the penultimate draft was released towards the end of in December 2024, but consistent with regular intergovernmental agreements, because, as you say, no state has signed. The final has not been released.
Could we get a copy on notice, please?
I'll take on notice what we can provide you, Senator.
Okay. Okay. All right. I might leave it there, Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Canavan. Senator Roberts, you had one more block.
Duo.
Yes. And I would very politely encourage brevity.
I'm trying to, yeah. David Farley was here just 4 days after being elected to represent Farrer in the recent by-election. But this line of questioning goes to it's very, very important to him on water. These are our questions, but I'm prepping for David to get here. This line of questioning goes to the effectiveness of environmental water as against alternative uses like growing food and fibre to feed and clothe the world. I want to compare your performance over time and raise important issues to form part of the next Murray-Darling Basin Plan. Two publications I'm referring to are the Lower Murray 2022-2023 Summary Report, Commonwealth Environmental Waterholder Science Program, commonly called FLOMA Program, dated July 2024. Lower Murray 2019-2024 Summary Report on the same program, dated July 2025, most recent version. The Lower Murray, starting with the concept of flowing water habitat, called lotic flow. This is the concept that improving the velocity of water, something above 0.3 metres per second, improves river health, producing environmental benefits around fish spawning, oxygenation, nutrient levels and connectivity. What is your target flow for lotic flow, expressed as a target velocity on how many days of the year?
Thank you, Senator. Look, we don't have a specific target. We basically work on the volume of water that is available both within the Lower Murray, so our South Australian entitlements, as well as our water that we have available that comes from return flows. And what we do is we'll design a hydrograph working with our state partner agencies to achieve a whole range of different outcomes for the environment, and that includes for native fish, trying to increase flow for a period of time, which then will get the fish to move, as well as other targets down in that area, like the lower lakes, the level of the lower lakes, trying to ensure connectivity between the lower lakes and the Coorong, which is a really important part of the health of that system more broadly.
So your targets are volume?
Not so much. Like we have a volume of water available to us, which comes through the allocation frameworks that are set up by the states, and then what we will design based on the water that we have available, the volume of water that we have available in our accounts. We will then design hydrographs working with the South Australian government officials to achieve the outcomes that we're aiming for. And like I say, that might be a pulse flow, which not only provides that flow habitat that native fish rely on, but also increases the likelihood that native fish will start to move through the system. It improves productivity within the system, which also helps them build condition.
What's the heads of power you're using for this metric, this volume metric? Is it specified in the Murray-Darling Basin Plan or regulations? Or
basically, as the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, my role is to manage the Commonwealth's environmental water holdings to protect and restore the environmental assets of the Murray-Darling Basin. Like irrigators, we have allocations that are made available to us through the state allocation frameworks, and that varies from year to year. We go through a planning process each year where we'll produce a water plan for the year, and then we'll adaptively manage our water through the water year, which will depend on conditions, what's happening, both up in the upper catchments, but also in the Lower Murray and the lower lakes.
Okay, thank you. Is this explanation that I'm about to give or read of the ecosystem along the Murray-Darling Basin before Western settlement accurate? It came from the CSIRO, and it's also Environment South Australia has a similar page. Quote, the Murray-Darling system, especially its lowland and lower sections, was naturally highly variable and often behaved like a semi-arid or dryland river system before European settlement and regulation. It was not reliably perennial like many European or North American rivers. Ecosystems and species evolved with extreme boom-bust cycles driven by climate, not constant flow. Is that accurate?
Look, I think it is a reflection of the boom and bust cycle within the Murray-Darling Basin more broadly, where we're reliant on rainfall to generate flows in the northern basin, for example. But I think we've also got to recognise we're working in a highly modified system, a highly regulated system, which has been modified to support irrigation and town water supplies, and that's happened over many decades.
I've tabled a paper here, Australian Non-Perennial Rivers, Global Lessons and Research Opportunities. The Murray-Darling River was never a perennial river. The Murray-Darling, rather, was never a perennial river. I've circulated the paper to that effect. The annual flows was highly variable along the Murray, starting with flooding during the spring rains and thaw in September through to November, then falling to low levels depending upon local rains. By autumn, the period you are naturally flooded recently, the river would have been very low. These are called pulse flows. Can we agree on that aspect of the science, which informs my next question?
Look, Senator, we certainly try and reinstate those pulse flows. We know that there's some systems, for example, the Goulburn River, where much of the flows have been reversed, the seasonality of flows have been reversed, so you're getting higher summer flows to meet the demands for irrigation. And then what we do is try and improve those flows during the winter-spring period, which is the more natural timing for environmental water or water to be flowing down that system.
Could I have the scientific basis on notice for that, please?
Yeah, sure, Senator. And you referred to a number of our FLOMA research reports. Yep. We've been supporting that research for well over 10 years now, and it's a very comprehensive, and all the reports, including annual synthesis reports, are available on the website, available for everyone to review.
Thank you. I note from your 2024 release claimed credit for, quote, from late March to early May 2023, Commonwealth Environmental Water extended the duration of flowing water habitat by 46 days, end of quote. This extended the summer flow period well into autumn, when the flow would naturally have slowed dramatically. What's the logic of extending the flow into autumn when the river would have naturally slowed in the period before Western settlement? Your remit is to restore the habitat and not make it wetter than it was naturally. Why?
Senator, look, I don't know the specific watering flow that you're talking about, but like I indicated earlier, what we certainly aim to do is, within a highly modified and regulated system, is try and return using the environmental water that we have available to us, try and reinstate some of those more natural flows, which goes to the timing, the duration, and within constraints within the system, the flow heights that we can achieve. And it's all focused on achieving good outcomes for native fish in particular, but also as we move down the system to maintain those lower lake levels. And I might just ask my colleague to add.
Senator Hilary Johnson, Branch Head, Aquatic Ecosystem Division. One of the key things to note, and I can't remember that specific flow event, but it's probably very similar to a flow that we've done just this past autumn. And so, for example, we've just provided a pulse flow down the Goulburn River in autumn. That was primarily around targeting outcomes within the autumn, within the Goulburn Valley itself, being able to support native fish movement, and generally improve the health of that system as it comes out of the summer period. Those flows then continue down into the lower Murray and then can provide that benefit further downstream. So it is not necessarily always the case that we're delivering water purely for a downstream outcome. It can be that we're targeting that upstream valley and then having that flow continue down to provide benefits further downstream.
Thank you. On notice, please, how much of your environmental water was used to create that 46 days of unnatural man-made flow in March to May 2023, and in any year since then where this attempt to extend the period of high flow has been undertaken?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. We'll take that on notice.
Thank you. Next aspect of the success criteria you're using is river level variability. You claim to have reduced water level variability by 10% in 2022-23. Your 2023-2024 report doesn't provide data for the 23-24 report. This is a significant area of debate. It's One Nation's position that maintaining the river at a commonly called topping towards
or at the top of the riverbank has led to saturation of the hard clay shell that protects the bank from erosion, causing erosion. So you're actually causing erosion. We've been listening to the farmers down there. I've visited the areas myself. Letting the flow drop to allow the riverbank to dry and harden is an essential natural process to protect the bank in times of flood. Why are you pursuing a constant river flow target when the Murray-Darling was never constant, and in so doing you're contributing to bank erosion? And I've got photos here showing tree roots and trees collapsing. You've probably heard of them.
Oh, yes, so thank you, Senator. So I think actually a really key feature of the use of Commonwealth environmental water is that we can introduce variability. We're not looking to meet constant flow heights for long periods of time. We'll generate a flow to a particular height for a period of time, and then we'll have a nice gentle recession on the back of that.
Why have you reduced variability by 10% in 2022-23?
And look, I don't know exactly what piece of information you're referring to, Senator, but what I can tell you is that there'll be certain instances where, for example, river operations in some of our rivers, the river will go up and down to meet orders to meet irrigation orders within the system. And what we do there is we try and smooth out those flows. And the reason for that is you can send a false cue to native fish. So the river starts to rise and the fish might start moving, and then it suddenly drops again. What we do is smooth out those flows to try and minimise the interruption of those sort of behaviours of our native fish. In terms of erosion,
the river's being silted.
In terms of erosion, I'll get my colleague to just go through the Goulburn, because we've got really good scientific evidence that actually shows that the water we deliver in that system is not contributing to erosion, and it's actually that change in seasonality of water, where it's low flows during summer and constant flows that is causing that erosion.
Yeah. Specifically on the matter you raised, Senator, so Commonwealth Environmental Water reduced water level variability by 10%, but that was mostly aimed at reducing the rate of flow recession. The idea of that is, again, not to have the water levels drop away too quickly, because it's that rapid decline in flow rates that often relates to that then the bank remaining wet and then subsequently slumping. If you can slow those rates of recession, that means you're going to reduce the rate of erosion or bank slumping. And as Dr. Banks said, we have seen that in the Goulburn River as well. We've got a whole series of very detailed scientific analysis on the riverbanks, which shows that Commonwealth environmental water has actually been a net benefit to riverbank health.
Okay, getting to the core of this bracket of questions. In your push for unnatural environmental water outcomes, one statistic stands out. This is the flow over the barrages and out to sea. The plan calls for a minimum of 2,000 gigalitres per annum on a three-year rolling average, with a minimum of 650 gigalitres in any 1 year. How much water was sent out to sea in the last 3 years, please?
Senator, look, we'll have to take that on notice. Certainly, maintaining connection between the lower lakes and the Coorong is really important. It supports a number of fish to move from the sea into the river to breed. And I think it is, again, what we're doing is working within a highly modified system and maintaining those connections. And there was a period between 2014 and 2021 where it was only because of Commonwealth environmental water that those connections between the river and the Coorong, or the sea, were maintained, and it was like 3 out of a 7-year period. So really important part of improving the salinity in those systems as well, in the Coorong as well, is ensuring that we retain that connection between the lower lakes and the Coorong.
This is the one target which has actually been set by the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, and you don't know what it is, or do you not want to say what it is? The figure I have for 2024 is 5,200 gigalitres. 5,200 gigalitres, almost 2.5 times It's more than 2.5 times. It's 2.6 times the target. And for 2025, I have 4,400 gigalitres. Now remember, the target is 2,000 gigalitres on a 3-year rolling average. In 2 years, the flow to sea was almost 5 years' worth of flow. Why have you chosen to increase water velocity beyond natural pre-Western civilisation levels and beyond planned specs? Why?
So, Senator, maybe just to go back through the numbers. So we don't have for every year, but I do have for the 24-25 water year that Commonwealth Environmental Water contributed more than 700 gigalitres of flow through the through the barrages.
What was the total going out the barrages?
So the total barrage flows for the 24-25 year is around 900 gigs. I can get the exact figure, but it's around that 900 gigalitre figure. And I think the other thing to note on that is that they're minimum requirements. They're not. It's not a focus on what the maximum flow. That's the minimum requirement for the Coorong flows into the Coorong.
Well, we have the figure here for 2024, 5,200 gigalitres measured going over the barrages, and for 2025, 4,400 gigalitres.
That doesn't. I mean, what we can report on what Commonwealth Environmental Water went down there. So, as my colleague.
What was the total water?
Look, we'll take that on notice, Senator. What I can say is that in 24-25, it was about 975 gigalitres of Commonwealth Environmental Water was provided down into South Australia, Murray. And then to 31 March this year, it's about 741 gigalitres of environmental water has been delivered to South Australia.
I'd like to know the total water going out of the barrages out to sea. Thank you. Last question on the Murray-Darling Basin. The Murray-Darling Basin Authority is now buying back more water for the environment despite the huge amount of water you're already sending out to sea. Huge amount. Has water for the environment turned into water to waste so farmers don't get it?
No.
Senator, if I may. Can I ask one brief set of questions on network, the grid? I've got a brief set of questions on the grid. National Water Grid.
On National Grid. Are you able to put them on notice? We are trying to get onto Bureau. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
No, thank you, Senator Roberts. I appreciate that. Okay, if that's the case, and again, the committee, in fact, the chair expresses thanks to Senator Roberts for that. We will now call officials of the Bureau of Meteorology. Yep. Welcome to officers from the Bureau of Meteorology. I welcome Dr Stuart Minchin, Chief Executive Officer and Director of Meteorology, and your team. The traditional question at this point is, would you like to make an opening statement? I'm not going to ask you for that. If you have one, if you wouldn't mind tabling it. Otherwise, I'm going to. Senator Bragg.
So was it a $96 million cost of exile or more than that?
Stuart Minchin, Chief Executive Officer, Director of Meteorology. Thank you, Senator. $96.3 million is the number.
Must be a good website. Now, who signed off on this?
You might not want to ask that question.
I'm happy to ask. I don't care. I'm not interested in politics. Who signed off on Wasn't me, so...
Thank you, Senator. To give you... so this was part of a larger program of development called Robust. The Robust program was initially started in the 2017-18 budget, was subsequently expanded or refunded in the 2019-20, and sorry, I'll just make sure that I get it correct. So, sorry, 2017-18 budget, tranche 2 was funded in the 2018-19 budget, tranche 3 in the 2021 budget. So that was the times where that entire package, including the website, was developed.
Okay. So 21 budget was tranche 3. So when did it go to 96 million? In 2021 or?
Thank you, Senator. So the process for scoping the size of the website cost developed over a number of those tranches and periods. I'll pass to my colleague Nicole Brinsmead to give you more detail on that.
Thank you, Nicole Brinsmead, the Chief Information Officer and Group Executive. So the website project sort of started in the 2018-19 budget period, or in tranche 2, and was delivered over the remaining period for the Robust program through to 2025. So the costs were built up over that period of time between 2018-19 to 2025.
So how much was the original approval?
So the original approval, well, so there was no sort of original approval specifically for the website. The website was given a budget based on expressions of interest that went to the market. And so the initial budget that was allocated to the website was approximately 34 million.
34 million originally? 34 million?
Yes, approximately.
Okay.
So, Senator, to be clear, that was before going to the market. That was our estimate. That was the Bureau's estimate at the time of how much the website might cost. That was then subsequently informed by multiple tender processes, which included built that cost up according to the scope of the program over the following years.
Okay, so it went from $34 million in 2017 to $96 million today. Is that right? I remind you, this is budget estimate, so we're trying to get to the bottom of these things.
Yes. No. So the original estimate was 34 million, and then it was informed by performed by expressions of interest from the market.
Sure.
Going to tender.
Yep.
And then when going through a discovery phase to actually understand the effort that was required, and the effort was to complete the website was more than originally budgeted for.
When did you discover that it was going to be more than you thought it was going to be?
So during the actual project, it went through several change processes.
This started in 2017, now it's 2026. When? That's a 9-year period.
I don't think there was any sort of light bulb moment that went, oh, this is going to cost more. As we went through the discovery phase, we estimated the project, and as the costs were incurred, that's when we allocated that budget for it.
I'll just replay your words to you. I know it's late at night, but you just said when the costs were incurred, that's when you knew. I mean, how could you run a project when, on the basis that costs are incurred, then you find out things are bad or they're blown out? Surely you know in advance before the costs are incurred.
So we estimated based on the effort that we thought was required, what we thought the costs would be, and we allocated a budget for that. And then that budget was re-estimated through the project based on what we understood the effort to be, and then. Okay, and so how has this been documented over the 9 years? So there's been extensive documentation through our project status reporting and our change control processes. And how many times has this been reported up to a minister? That the costs have ratcheted up? I couldn't answer that question, sorry.
Why not?
Because I don't know off the top of my head.
Who do you report to?
I report to the CEO.
Okay, so when were you appointed, Dr. Minchin?
I was appointed on the 10th of November last year.
Okay, so you inherited this boondoggle?
Yes.
Okay, so if you were an internal auditor, what would be the controls you'd have in place to ensure that there is proper process around expenditure of public funds, particularly when there's a long-running project and there's a risk that it might escalate?
So, Senator, I think it's important to mention a couple of things. So one is that my understanding is that, as was mentioned, there was an initial estimate by the department, the Bureau, as to what the cost would be. After testing that with the market, there was a significant change to that scope. These costs were determined by approaching the market and tested through a series of control points prior to agreement as part of the robust package. The broader package of investment that was going on across the Bureau. That robust program underwent a whole range of Department of Finance, Department of Digital Transformation Agency reviews over the period of the robust program, and there were control points in place along that pathway around the expenditure that went into the components of that program, including the website. So it was not just that we spent what it cost. There was a governance process for robust overall, which was adhered to along that way. I should mention that in December last year, soon after I joined, the Department of Finance did its final assessment of the robust program and gave it a green light under its Gateway Review program. So, stating that it had been well managed and delivered what was there. That does not mean the same, Senator. Just to be clear, I've been public here in hearings and publicly stating that the website has not met everyone's needs, and clearly needs continued investment, and we are continuing to address the feedback that we've received from the public.
Well, it doesn't sound like a very good process. So look, just finally, in the interest of time, so Minister, I think in the 9 newspapers in November, you were said to have put the Bureau on notice about this ballooning cost. So what assurances can you give us that this is not going to happen again?
Well, the webs, to the best of my knowledge, the website redesign has been completed. There are ongoing updates being made to that website, as occurs with most websites. But from my point of view, the project is largely completed.
In the interest of time, move on.
Thank you, Chair. I guess this leads us neatly to the problem, Dr. Minchin, which is the website project may be completed, but it's not been completed satisfactorily. And the constant feedback that I get is how unhappy people are with the website, and how they continue to use the old website. And I guess my question to you tonight is how long do you intend to leave the old website active?
Thank you, Senator. We certainly accept that the new website has not met all needs within the community, and we have received a lot of feedback from the community. We've received over 750,000 pieces of feedback that we are working through, addressing the website functionality. That is being addressed through a series of different releases, addressing the priority feedback that we've received over time. So it is an ongoing process to improve the functionality of the website. It's not something that that can be solved overnight. I will also mention, though, for the record, that we have seen an increase in use of the website since the relaunch, actually, not a decrease. We have seen at the same time an increase in use of the reg users website, which is the old website. But the overall use of the website has increased since the initial launch. So we're not saying that it is meeting everyone's needs yet. We're continuing to develop it, but it has actually resulted in more people using the website than used to use it prior to its relaunch.
Because I assume that you wouldn't want to conflate more users being satisfaction. It might be more users
Absolutely.
having more devices and more reason to access an electronic weather device, weather reporting service. I mean, I would put to you that every single time I log on to use it, because I'm attempting to be, open and exploring the new website, I go mad. Where am I and what's the location? And I'm just going, I just want to log on to the same place that I can, the radar that I want to use, and look at the weather in that place, and it's bloody impossible. Anyway, so have you got a bomb bot, to respond to people's questions about the new website?
We don't, I believe, use a bot. We have a customer service team that take these pieces of feedback and work through them, identifying the common threads in the feedback, and we are addressing them over time. As I've mentioned, we have done a number of releases of the website and updated a number of things since launch, including the way the rain radar, which is our primary piece of feedback, presents itself, and there is more to come. So we are not completely finished with working through that very long list of feedback, but we are addressing the most common pieces of feedback first to ensure that...
I'll give you my piece of feedback. I want to be able to log on and go to the same radar in the same location to check the weather where I need to see it.
Well,
and I've got 3 radars that I check, and I can't do that for any of them easily. Anyway, I give you that in the interest... No, I'm not quite at 5 minutes, I'm sure.
You are right on the cusp of it.
On the cusp. I will give you some more questions on notice, but specifically I need to ask you about the Croydon gap in weather monitoring for North West Queensland. I want to ask, I guess this is to you, Minister, is there funding available to erect a radar either at Croydon or in that gap, because the Mornington Island one is not working, not suitable?
I would have to get the officials to answer that. I mean, I have to tell you, I get, and the Bureau gets many requests for new weather radars across the country.
Queensland, though, Minister, I'd suggest a state that would be closest to your attention.
And I wouldn't mind guessing that there's a lot of weather radars in Queensland.
Well, no, this is... So
I'm not saying this one isn't necessary.
Please provide the Minister with a report for how few radars there are in Queensland and what a massive gap we have in Northern Australia.
Well, I'll leave it to the officials to provide any advice they can about the Croydon area.
Thank you, Senator. What I'll say is we do have currently 69 operational radars across the country, which covers about 98% of Australia's population. There are 2 radars that are currently damaged and that are being repaired at this point. We don't have any funding to expand that network any further at this stage, but we are aware of strong community interest in a number of places around Australia for radar coverage, we are working to look at, one of our projects is looking at future radar technologies that may make radars cheaper, more efficient, that might allow us to expand that network in future. But we're certainly aware that the Australian public loves radar and would like to have coverage for 100% of the population.
Yeah, massively important where we've got cyclones and big floods and no visibility at all.
It is worth mentioning too, Senator, though, that radar fulfils an important role, but it is not the only tool that we use. We do have 100% coverage of satellite imagery for the Australian population. We utilise automatic weather stations, we utilise a whole range of other data inputs to deliver our forecasts. So The radar is something that people like to be able to see, but it is not the determining factor in the way that we forecast.
I appreciate that, but in Northern Australia we know the number of flood gauges that failed, of missing radar images. You know, it was very gappy during the last lot of floods, and it resulted in unpredictable outcomes. Thanks, Chair.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for appearing again. Please confirm your expenditure for 2025-26, which would include operating expense, special purpose allocations, your own revenue and capital expenditure. What is it?
Thank you very much, Senator. I will pass to Astrid Heward, my Chief Operating Officer, to answer that question for you.
Astrid Heward, Group Executive and Chief Operating Officer. Sorry, Senator, can you repeat the items that you were looking for?
Operating expense. What you've spent totally. Operating expense, special purpose allocations, own revenue and capital expenditure.
I'm actually going to call the Chief Financial Officer up for this one.
Provide it?
Yep.
Oh, you're going to call him up?
Thank you. Senator Mark Wines, Chief Financial Officer. So in the recently published public benefit statements in the May budget, the overall revenue for the Bureau will be $753 million. So that makes up both our operating and capital components. And the expenditure for the actual expenditure this year is still in development, so that's our revenue that we're working towards for both. So capital is $102,539,000. Oh, sorry, correct that, $100,846,000 for capital.
And for 2026-27, what's the budget?
Sorry, that's the 2026-27.
What's the total amount for budget?
$723,346 million.
723,000 million?
Sorry, 723 million.
Thank you.
346,000.
In 2017-2018, your budget was under 400 million. Now it's 723 million. What's causing the massive cost blowout in the Bureau of Meteorology? Why?
Go.
I'll ask another question. How many staff did you have in 2017-18 and how many now?
We'd have to take that on notice, Senator. We don't
You
have
don't
the
know.
20,
That's
we don't
one of
have
the
the
key figures for-
2018 figures in front of us, I'm sorry.
That's one of the key figures. Has anyone been fired for wasting $96 million of taxpayer money?
Thank you, Senator. We don't believe $96 million was wasted. No one has
Okay,
been
let's
fired.
move on. In February, the bomb predicted the Bureau of Meteorology has defended its warnings of a weekend deluge in Queensland, leading local councils to activate major flood response measures, only for as little as 30 millimetres of rain to fall. Meteorologist Angus Hines said on Thursday that, quote, some of those higher end numbers could certainly exceed 200 millimetres, but I wouldn't rule out one or two locations getting 300 millimetres in the next few days. Brisbane ultimately measured just 30 millimetres of rain across the entire weekend, with the Sunshine Coast hinterland recording up to 60 millimetres. This is becoming a joke in southeast Queensland. Catastrophic floods imminent, and we get 30 mils. How did the forecast get so wrong, and how does it happen so often?
Well, thank you, Senator. I think one of the challenges that we have with perceptions in the community is that people think that forecasting rainfall is a perfect science. It's not. It comes with uncertainties, significant uncertainties that are there. So when we provide a forecast, we provide a range of probabilities, and we do our best to ensure that the public have the best information that they can rely on for their decision making. There are always going to be times when our forecast is not correct. Right? So I want to be clear on that. It always will be times when our forecast is not correct, but on average we will get it right.
I have this from one website, I believe. Rainfall range reliability. You repeatedly overstate the rain, repeatedly. If it was natural variation, some would be below, some would be above. This is repeatedly
overstated. Is that to perpetuate myths about climate because now of water shortage?
Thank you, Senator. Absolutely not. We have a rigorous program of assessing the accuracy of our forecasts, and I've asked Michael Logan, who's general manager in our forecasting area, to perhaps provide a little bit more explanation of the validation that we do for the accuracy of our forecasts.
Thank you, Senator. Michael Logan here, General Manager of the National Production Services Program. That's correct. That is posted on our website, and we are talking about the probability forecasts for rainfall and the rainfall ranges that we do provide on there. And we are finding that we are honing those over the years as they go on. And for example, when we looked at the last financial year, the probabilities for the next day rainfall, when the Bureau forecasts indicated a 25%, 50% or 75% chance of exceeding a certain amount of rainfall. Observations showed that forecast rainfall was exceeded 19%, 49% and 80% of the time respectively. So the forecasts are pretty well calibrated, but we are absolutely constantly working to make sure that they are as calibrated as we can possibly get them. And over time we're focusing in on making sure that is for the higher end rainfall. But all rainfall is very important.
Last question, Chair. I'll put the rest on notice. I still don't have an explanation for why farmers tell me weather zone is more accurate than BOM when they take your data, then reanalyse it themselves. Is there something in your algorithms that leans towards predicting hotter and drier conditions than weather zone do? Elders Weather actually adds weather zone data to their own rural stations to produce accurate forecasts in the bush. More accurate than yours. Have you thought of licensing Elders' own station data to make your data more accurate?
Thank you, Senator. There's no doubt that there are a range of different ways that the Australian public, including farmers, can access weather data, not just from the Bureau's forecasts. We stand by our accuracy, as has been identified by Michael about the way that we assess that. There is always the ability for other providers to package data in a way that is more accessible to different audiences, and we encourage that third-party engagement. We partner and provide our data to partners like Weatherzone to ensure that they're able to deliver to their audiences the information that they want. That's not a reflection of our accuracy or lack of accuracy. This is about different preferences. The challenge we have, Senator, is we have 28 million customers in Australia, and they all have slightly different preferences for how they want to receive their weather. And we are trying our best to meet all of those needs at all times. And the farming sector is a key sector for us that we treat very seriously, and we try and get our information as correct as we can through that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick question. I vote optimistically. I need a contract with Essentia contract CN 4226159. As I understand, this contract is for the provision of platform services for the Australian Climate Service. Is that right?
I'll ask Vicky Manson to answer that as the head of the
BOM's response to OPD from on that contract says the initial contract with Essentia is worth 15 million thereabouts for the initial 3-year term. However, the total estimated commitment over the maximum 7-year term, including the initial term and all extension options, is redacted. What is the total estimated commitment over the 7-year period?
I'll get Ms Schneider to answer that.
Just the number.
Thank you for your question. Tanya Schneider, General Manager of Delivery for the Australian Climate Service. I don't have the total figure for the extended period of time. The original contract is for the 15 points.
Yeah, I don't need you to go. I just said that. What is the redacted number?
Yeah, I don't have the redacted number with me today. I'd have to take that on notice.
Will you give it to me on notice?
Well, the official has taken the question on notice and no doubt will consider whether that information can be provided.
I am extremely concerned at the failure to have that number available. We know what Essentia's track record is. I think my question's entirely predictable, and I think we know what the Essentia over-promise, under-deliver track record is like. The Australian public want to know what this figure is. I can see no reason for its reduction in the first place, and I want a commitment, Minister, that this number will be supplied.
No, the official has taken the question on notice and will consider what information can be provided.
Why are you giving a massive contract like this to Essentia, given their track record, while hundreds of climate jobs are being wiped out?
My understanding is that a comprehensive competitive procurement process was undertaken by the Bureau in awarding that contract.
Just like last time.
And that, I'm sure the officials would be happy to talk to you about the basis of that decision.
Thanks.
No, I don't actually, Chair. I'm fine.
Thank you. In which case we say thank you to the officials from the Bureau. Appreciate your attendance here, your evidence and the work that goes into it. We will now call, very briefly, the Australian Antarctic Division.
2 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you for waiting.
Very soon to be 1 minute. Let's go.
Senator Wishford.
Yeah, thank you. I might start with you, Mr Sullivan. Just follow up my questions from last estimates. As part of the Macquarie Wharf upgrade deal with the Tasmanian Government, refuelling solution for Noyina needs to be accepted by the end of July and in place for the upcoming Antarctic season. As you're aware, right to information documents show most options require permanent infrastructure that will take 2 to 3 years to develop. Could you give us an update? Is that correct, and is that how long it will take to resolve this issue?
I'm not sure about how long it's going to take to resolve the issue. Tasmania gave us an interim solution, and we are still pursuing a longer-term solution that will allow us to refuel the Noyina in Hobart.
So could you tell us about the interim solution? That was going to be my next question.
The Tasmanian interim solution, I don't think it's a secret. They just wanted to roll trucks in.
Just want to drive trucks in, and that's the interim solution. And that's what they've been doing for the last...
We've used that before, but that was for as I understand it, was for minor top-ups.
Emma Cowell, Head of Division, Antarctic Division. Yes, we have used trucks, for example, to top up to go to Macca, to Macquarie Island, but not to do a major refuel. It's quicker to go to Burnie.
Is this acceptable to the AAD?
No.
No.
Far from it. And at every possible level, we have made the point to the Tasmanian Government that they made a commitment to find a workable solution as a condition of receiving a large amount of money from the Australian Government, and they have not yet delivered.
That was going to be my next question. I mean, if the solution isn't in place by the deadline, are you going to refuse to give them the $2 million? That's the milestone payment that was due to be paid?
Yeah, so the Tasmania has written to us saying that they won't meet the July timeframe for the refuelling, and have asked to push that back. The Minister's written in principle saying, in principle, we understand that's the case. We encourage Tasmania to focus on a long-term solution and note that effectively that the funding deal, including the final payments, are reliant on that fueling infrastructure.
Has there been any work done at all on long-term solutions that you're aware of, Mr. Sullivan? No?
Yes. The original, I think, previous Department of State Growth, which I'm not sure exists anymore, in Tasmania, did some work on that. I know there's been some offers, unsolicited offers to Tasmania of other longer-term solutions. I think, to be honest, this has all been tied up in a range of priority setting where I think Tasmania just hasn't delivered something that's sensible or usable for us.
Oh, that's very disappointing. I suppose they've been very focused on delivering a wharf solution up in Devonport for the New Spirit. which they haven't done either, funny enough. I'm not sure what it is about boats and wharfs in Tasmania. But well, could I ask then, will you be required to send the Noyena to Burnie? The previous costs I think we'd got was $875,000 extra per year to go to Burnie. Will that have increased now with diesel prices?
It'll depend. What it'll cost next year is hypothetical, but we are planning to go to Burnie next year. This year we spent about $600,000 going to Burnie because we only went 3 times.
Right. Okay, and just quickly, very quickly, just following up on the ATSB's preliminary report on the Noyena running aground at Herd Island back in October last year. It was reported in the media that substantial damage was done to mounted instruments. They're damaged or missing. Are you able to say which particular instruments were damaged?
Yeah, so when Noyena grounded, the drop keel was down. So there's some superficial damage to the hull, and some sensors on one of the drop keel were left inoperable, which was really about high-res mapping sensors on that drop keel. We are, Noyena will go to dry dock next month in Singapore, and as it's part of its normal maintenance schedule, and during that time we'll you'll replace
those.
We're looking to have that repaired.
Are you able to give us just like a rough indication of cost?
I think it's significant, but it will be covered by Serco or their insurance, so it won't cost us.
Right, okay, no worries. I did have questions about the Thwaites Glacier and a lot of the other stuff that you're working on, but I don't think I'm going to be allowed to ask them. I'll put them on notice. And I'd just like to apologise for making you wait till 1 minute past 11. I don't think that's acceptable. It's not a reflection on your work. You've done a good job today, Chair, but maybe next time we'll try and get you guys in first. Earlier in the schedule, so we can ask you about some of the good work you're doing.
Thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson.
I won't be here, but someone else.
Thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson. And I always encourage more efficient and effective questioning. So that concludes today's hearing. Thank you to all witnesses who appeared and to Hansard and Broadcasting for their assistance. I remind senators the committee has agreed that any written questions on notice should be lodged with the Secretariat by 5 June 2026. The committee stands adjourned.